trying to shoot. I get to go into good hearing.
Ready? Call this meeting of Kent County Commissioners to order, please.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as we observe a moment of silence in honor of our first responders. Thank you. Okay. We have several sets of minutes, regular minutes, liquor minutes, and the public hearing minutes for the Agricultural Land Preservation Code Home Rule Bill 1 and 2 of 2018 and Comprehensive Plan Update.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Probably move in second to approve the aforementioned minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously.
Always on board.
Getting excited about
Application from the Rock Hall Volunteer Fire Company. This is for bingo, be held at the Rock Hall Fire Hall on April 21st.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Probably move in second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. We have several Class C license applications from the same organization, the Community Volunteer Fire Company of Millington. This is for beer, wine, and liquor. It's a cornhole league held at the firehouse in Millington on April 5th, 2nd, 19th, 26th, May
12th. Not second.
the 2nd, 5th, 12th, thank you, 19th, 26th, May 3rd, also in May 10th. Okay. Since this is a application for a liquor license require a public hearing, does anyone have any comments for or against the aforementioned application? Hearing none,
Motion to approve.
Second?
moving second to approve the aforementioned applications. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Still have one more.
But no, I am doing it right now. We have one more application for a Class C license for beer from the Eastern Shore Rabbit Rescue and Education Center. It's a running race in Kennedyville to be held on May 5th and 6th of this year. Hearing none,
Motion to approve.
Second?
probably moving second to approve the aforementioned application. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously. Right. As we go into a legislative session,
First you got a legislative session?
I'll second that.
probably moving second to commence the legislative session. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously. The session is to consider for a vote Code Home Rule 1-2018, school bus parking lot and parking of school buses. This is an act of provisions in the village, intense village, and commercial districts and special exception section of the Kent County Land Use Ordinance for the purpose of adding, which includes amendments to Article 5, Section 10 and 11 to include accessory use provisions in the commercial and crossroad commercial districts of the Kent County Land Use Ordinance for the purpose of adding language which will allow provisions to permit the parking of school buses as an accessory use. No written comments were received during the comment period. This is the third reading.
Want to deal with it?
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
Probably moving second to approve Code Home Rule 1-2018. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously. Food products. This is an act to amend Article 5, Section 10.3, and Article 7, Section 6 and 7, to include special exception provisions in the Crossroads Commercial District and Special Exception section of the Kent County Land Use Ordinance for the purpose of adding language which will allow provisions to permit the manufacturing, processing, and assembling of food products to include baked and confectioner's goods, frozen food processing, fruit and vegetable processing, canning and storage, or businesses of a similar nature, excluding animal and seafood processing as a special exception use, and establish review standards therein. No written comments were received during the comment period.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Properly moved and second to approve Code Home Rule 2-2018. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. This legislation would be effective on April 14th of 2018. Okay. That. Board of County Commissioners will now sit as the county's liquor board to hear an alleged alcoholic beverage violation. Rob, I know you're here somewhere. There you go.
We also have the licensee here who is represented by counsel for the record.
Okay. All of those who have business before the Liquor Commission are present, with including the licensees, correct?
Yes.
Or their
Licensee is present with counsel.
counsel.
If I may,
She's-
Coach, I'd love to have Paul up here. I can-
That'd be fine. That's great.
I'm gonna sit on the-
Gentlemen, this is a continuation of a hearing that we commenced on or about February 5th. At that time, Mr. Edler, the inspector, was sworn in, offered some testimony. He entered into evidence a report of the Comptroller's office with regard to the investigation. He also entered into evidence photographs of items that were seized at one of the residence of one of the licensees. The hearing was continued for a couple of reasons, one of which was to have the opportunity to subpoena the enforcement agents here who were involved hands-on in the investigation, also to afford the licensees some time to prepare, and also to track the related criminal charges. With respect to the criminal charges, I spoke with Mr. Saunders today, and I also spoke with the Assistant Attorney General in the state of Delaware that's handling the case. With respect to the charges against Mr. Cristiano, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, those charges were dismissed for nolli prosecchi, was entered by the court of Delaware. The reason why is the Assistant AG felt that there was a technical defect in the search warrant for Mr. Cristiano's home. There was language that was intended to be in the warrant regarding the probable cause and the nexus between the home and what they were searching for. That information was in the arrest warrant, but it didn't find its way into the search warrant. The Assistant AG explained to me that it was essentially a word processing issue, copy and paste that something was intended to be in the warrant didn't make it in. They felt that the warrant or the search warrant that would not sustain a legal challenge. Delaware's laws are somewhat different than Maryland in that regard. So that case was null pros. The other licensee, or the second of the third licensees, the charges against him, Mr. Connell, were not dismissed. He was indicted in Delaware because he does not have standing to challenge a search or a seizure at Mr. Cristiano's home. So those charges are going forward, I was told. And with respect to the Cristiano residence, so there's also the standing issue there where they don't have standing to challenge that. So I think that may also be moot because you've already accepted into evidence photographs and evidence of what was seized at the residence. But I do want to just get you up to speed and bring that to your attention. Mr. Saunders did prepare a memorandum, and I received a copy of that. Mr. Edler did too. I'm not sure if that's part of the official record, but if it's not, I have no objection to that being part of the official record.
I would ask that it be entered, and I would also ask if you all had a chance to review it and digest it.
That so ordered to re-enter into the record.
Well, the only reason I asked the second question is I hope to spare you the time of me sitting here essentially repeating it to you if you've already had a chance to get it.
Up to Mr. Saunders to do whatever he thinks is necessary. I've had a chance to look at it because I've been here all day, but if you feel more comfortable, by all means, it's your show.
At the right time, it's up to you.
I think I would not oppose the board's decision, but if he wants to reserve and argue those points after testimony is taken,
Yes.
that's the way we could do that.
Okay.
Perfect time. Okay.
Well, anybody that's going to testify, I don't think we swore in the witnesses yet. I can't. So we would do that. So anybody that's going to testify, that one includes, is there anybody from the licensee that's going to testify? Okay. Do you solemnly promise or swear under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give in the matter before us shall be true to the best of your knowledge and belief? Okay. First call as a witness, Agent Mark Wright. Right here. Mr. Wright, could you please state for the record your name and occupation? Agent Wright, how long have you been with the Comptroller's office as an agent?
For 6 years.
And during that time, have you done alcohol enforcement?
That's correct.
Prior to being employed with the Comptroller's office, where were you employed?
I've retired from the Maryland Natural Resources Police. And prior to that, I was 12 years at the Cambridge City Police, Cambridge, Maryland.
All right. Agent Wright, did you become involved in an investigation with the establishment that's the subject of the license, Pips Bar and Discount Liquors?
Yes.
And could you please tell the board about your investigation?
That's correct. On December 1st, 2017, at about 10 a.m., I received a phone call from my supervisor who had received information from Delaware about possible liquor being transported from Pips Liquor to a location in the state of Delaware. I was in Easton at the time. It took me about an hour and 10 minutes to get on location. And when I arrived, I saw the van owned by Pips Liquor displaying the Maryland tag 6CZ7904 parked in the rear. Alongside the van, there's empty boxes, some broken down. Inside the van, in the back windows, I could see that there's a blanket covering boxes that were consistent in the size and shape of cases. in doing investigations with the comptroller's office for the past 6 years, I've seen where not only liquor, but also tobacco, when it's being transported for illicit purposes, are covered in a blanket and for concealment going down the road. From that point, myself and Agent Vince Allen followed the van when it left the store and followed it north on Route 213, eventually making its way to a one-way or a street, Labrador Lane, in Bear, Delaware, off of 301.
I don't think this witness has any jurisdiction in the state of Delaware to do anything in connection with an investigation, and his observations in the state of Delaware are not proper evidence before this board.
I can offer an opinion. I believe the witness is competent to testify as to whatever he observed in the state of Delaware. Whether or not he has any powers to bring actions in the state of Delaware or to arrest anybody in the state of Delaware is a different, or cite anybody in the state of Delaware for violation is a different issue. But the fact that he is an agent for the comptroller doesn't preclude him from being able to testify as to what he observed or saw in another state.
He was conducting an investigation in Delaware. He has no
It's
power.
like he did cite what he observed, and his observations were not part of any enforcement action. You may continue.
I observed the van turn off of Route 301 on a Labrador Lane, which was clearly marked no outlet. I didn't follow the van down that Labrador Lane. I continued up to the next intersection, which was some construction going on, and I parked my vehicle amongst the construction vehicles. About 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, the van exited directly to the area of Middletown, specifically the Walmart parking lot in Middletown, Delaware. During this time, and while I was in Delaware, I was on the phone communicating with my Delaware counterparts, letting them know where they're at. And they were vectoring into my area, and eventually they got to the Walmart parking lot about the same time I did. At that point, they took over the surveillance and were able to observe Mr. Pownell, who was driving the van, exit the van, go into the Walmart store. They walked up to the van and looked in the window, and they can see that the van was empty of any alcohol or any of the boxes or items that I saw in the back window. Which I also noticed when the vehicle left Labrador Lane, when it got on the 301, I got back behind it. Walmart, those items that I saw originally in the back window were now gone.
Agent, when you got back to Maryland, did you have any further involvement in this matter, this case?
When I got back to Maryland on about towards the end of the month, about December 29th, myself and Agent Powell conducted an alcohol tobacco inspection at Pitt's Liquor and met Mr. McConnell. I asked Mr. McConnell of all the alcohol on the list from Pitt's Liquors. We had a discussion about the case on Labrador Lane. I asked him if all the alcohol on the list came from Pitt's Liquors, and he stated he wasn't sure. I asked how many cases of alcohol he delivered from Pitt's Liquors to Mr. Cristiano's residence on December 1st. Said about 12 cases, but couldn't remember the brands. I then asked Mr. McConnell if he can produce invoices from authorized Maryland wholesalers that can account for the alcohol on the list that were seized from the residence. And he stated that he could, however, he identified several of the brands of alcohol on the confiscated list that Pips Liquor didn't sell.
Thank you. Unless you have anything else, this would be the opportunity. The board could ask you questions, and then Mr. Saunders could ask you questions if he has any questions.
You have any questions?
You said no?
Yeah.
I would just like to know, so all the research you had done here in the state of Maryland before going into Delaware, everything you had done, you had took no active role in the state of Delaware except for asking your counterparts to come and
Right.
recognize the vehicle that you had been monitoring at the time.
Delaware actually called us to respond to Pips Liquors to assist them, and our role was to follow it from Maryland into Delaware. I did have a conversation with Mr. Connell at Delaware, but he had already invoked his Fifth Amendment rights, but that was about my extent of it. Now, as a comptroller agent within Maryland, we routinely, especially on tobacco cases, will travel to Virginia and do surveillance of tobacco establishments and watch tobacco smugglers, and that's been held up in courts. We didn't take any law enforcement action in the state until they crossed the Maryland state line on, for an example, the tobacco case, that the probable cause that we obtained out of state
Enforcement in this area, because of our proximity to other states, to do surveillance activities in neighboring states and arrest anybody in the neighboring states,
Question, or are you giving testimony?
providing advice to the board.
Well, this is not the time for advice. This witness is being examined.
Well, in this proceeding, it's different than a formal trial, so I believe that it is appropriate, if a point is made, that counsel to the board can give the board advice.
For clarification purposes.
Okay.
Do you have
My turn?
Yeah.
Mr. Wright, the Delaware authorities called you to follow this van in Maryland because they knew they didn't have jurisdiction to conduct an investigation in Maryland. Isn't that correct?
You're asking me if their legal stance on conducting an investigation in Maryland? Are you asking my opinion about their legal stance for conducting an investigation in Maryland?
Why they asked you to conduct the investigation? Why didn't they come down here and follow?
Based on the amount of time it took them to catch up with me, I don't think they had any of their agents in the area. I don't think they were expecting to do this case on the morning of December 1st.
And so,
They received a complaint of some sort.
all right, so your commencement of your investigation was the result of your supervisor saying to you that he had information that something illegal was going to happen. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But you don't know the source of that information? Is that correct?
No, he told me that it came from the agents in Delaware. They contacted him for,
So his source was agents in Delaware, but you don't know what their source was.
no,
So your information was third-hand hearsay based upon information provided by some unknown person in some unknown location. Is that correct?
it could be, yes. That is absolutely correct.
And when you followed Mr. Connell into Delaware, you didn't see where he ended up.
I saw him turn on Labrador Lane, which was a no outlet road. That's all I could see. I didn't follow him down there because I didn't want him to know when I was following him. It was a no outlet road.
So your answer is you didn't see where he went, correct?
That's correct.
And you didn't see if he ever saw anybody, spoke to anybody, or had any interaction with anybody.
That's correct.
So you didn't see him hand anybody a bottle of liquor, 2 bottles of liquor, or a case of liquor.
That's correct.
So you have absolutely no personal knowledge of him delivering anything to anybody, correct?
The only conclusion that I made,
No, I'm not asking you for conclusions. I'm asking you what you saw. We got lots of conclusions in this case. I'd like you to tell us what you saw.
I saw a van with items that were consistent to the shape of boxes of liquor covered by a blanket in our Labrador Road. I saw that same van leave, and those items were no longer visible in the back window.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Anything else you wish to? Dominic, please state for the record your full name and occupation.
I'm Agent Sue, Joseph Dominic with the Delaware Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Enforcement.
Dominic, did there come a time when you received call or dispatch from Maryland Comptroller's agent?
From Maryland Comptroller?
Yes.
No, no time was I ever contacted about it.
Did you receive a call from somebody in your office or your department?
Yes.
Okay, when was that?
The morning of December 1st, 2017.
And upon receiving that call, what did you do?
Upon receiving the call, I reached out to the contact I had, Agent Wright's supervisor in the Maryland Comptroller's office, explained to him the complaint that I was given, and asked them to assist in our investigation.
And what was your investigation?
Our investigation was into the establishment known as Pips Liquors, allegedly taking alcohol that was purchased for their store and bringing it into a unknown location in New York, Delaware.
And as a result of this, did you become aware that surveillance activities were being conducted on the Pips location in Maryland?
I did.
Okay. And did there come a time when you became involved in that surveillance?
No, sir. I was never involved in surveillance.
Did there come a time when you became involved in an inspection of a vehicle?
Inspection of a vehicle? Yes, sir.
Okay, tell us about that.
So, on the morning of December 1st, after Maryland authorities had followed the van into the state of Delaware, agents in my department conducted a traffic stop on that vehicle upon it leaving Middletown. We confirmed that there was nothing inside the vehicle. At that point, Mr. Connell was taken into custody and everything was brought back to Middletown Police Department, where a full search could be conducted on the vehicle, at which time myself and other agents conducted a search of the vehicle at Middletown PD. They originally did the search before I arrived on scene, and then once I arrived on scene at Middletown, I again went through just to confirm everything they'd seen.
And what was the result of that?
Inside the van, there was a blanket. I believe there was a bike. There was a couple cases of water and various cases of different sodas.
No alcohol.
No alcohol.
Was there a subsequent search after that?
Of the vehicle or just in general?
In general?
Yes.
And where did that search take place?
There was a search warrant conducted on 100 Labrador Lane, Bear, Delaware, zip code of 19701.
And whose residence is that?
Residents of Fortunato Cristiano.
And tell us about the search of the residence.
Would you like me to just go through everything that was found during the search?
Yes.
During the search, we located 17 cases of 750 milliliters of, excuse my pronunciation, Beve Cliquots, with the Breakthrough Beverage Maryland stickers still on the case itself, on each case. We also found 15 cases of 700 milliliter of a Maker's Dozen, with the Pips Bar and Liquors sticker still located on the box, on the cases as well. We located 20 cases of 370 milliliters of Jameson Irish whiskey with the Pips Bar and Liquor stickers still on. 4 cases of 375 milliliters of Captain Morgan with Breakthrough Beverage Maryland stickers still located on. 10 cases of 1.75 liters of Tanqueray still with Breakthrough Beverage Maryland label stickers on them. 5 cases of 750 milliliters of Absolute Vodka still marked with Pips Liquors. 5 cases of 1 liter of Absolute Vodka still marked with Pips Liquors. 7 cases of 375 milliliters of Jack Daniels, still marked for Pips Liquors. 1 case of 200 milliliters of Captain Morgan with Breakthrough Beverage Maryland stickers still on them. 2 cases of 200 milliliter JD Tennessee Honey, Jack Daniels Tennessee Honey, which the tags were removed, actually cut out of the box. 5 bottles of 1 liter Kettle One vodka, tags also removed from that box. 3 cases of 750 milliliters of Johnny Walker Gold, tags removed from that box as well. Those cases as well. 2 cases.
President, these inventories are in the record. We'll stipulate that that's going to be his testimony. I don't see what's to be gained by him reading that entire inventory.
That's
I
fine.
think that's fair. It's part of the record.
I think to clear this, it totaled, if I've read it right, 112 cases. Something like that.
It was in total of 117 cases.
117.
Okay.
Okay, color, or were the color photographs taken?
Yes.
You have those? The black and white photographs previously entered into the record. He has
Color.
the color photographs, which
We have color.
color. Okay, so
Have mine.
the photographs, both these were the same photographs that were taken at the scene, were the ones that were attached to the official reports in this case? That's correct. Okay. So, I stand corrected. We do have the color photographs. Just thinking they were black and white. Sorry, Mr. Sullivan. Is there anything else you want to advise the board with respect to your investigation? Do you have any conversations with Mr. Cristiano?
I did. At his residence, when he arrived on scene, he was immediately taken into custody and brought into the kitchen area of his residence. He was immediately read his Miranda rights, at which time he stated that, without us questioning him, he stated that all the alcohol was for gifts. That was going to be given to various either locations or people for him for the holiday seasons.
117 cases.
That's what he gets.
Anything else?
I don't believe so.
Okay. You have any questions?
I don't know if I've seen it. What would be the value of 117 cases?
Taylor wholesale.
I don't think we have.
Let's just go wholesale since they're going away as gifts. Since they're just going to be given away as gifts, let's go wholesale. I just want to know.
The
I
champagne.
don't know off the top of my head.
There was no numbers created when you filed in Delaware and so forth. The value of the case in a whole.
No, I don't believe we ever put a number to it.
Would you know, Dan?
I have no idea.
Dan, you want to ask any questions?
Yes. So essentially, your testimony,
Yes.
Dominic, is that you went to Walmart and found an empty vehicle.
No, sir, I would never walk.
Where did you inspect the van?
Middletown Police Department. But yes, the van was empty.
And it was
All
empty.
the alcohol beverages by the time I got to it.
Okay. And you were not involved in the surveillance of the van?
Yes, sir.
And when you got to Mr. Cristiano's house, who was there?
Myself, there was agent, 4 or 5 other agents from my division.
But no one else? No one who resided in the house was present?
Mr. Cristiano's wife was also inside the residence.
And do you know when she got there?
The time she was at the residence. Well, from the moment after we made the arrest, we had agents standing by with 301 at our lane.
When you inspected and made this meticulous inventory of these cases of liquor in this garage, did you happen to look at their delivery dates that were on the boxes? So it's not new information, it is new information to you that some of the boxes were dated as far back as 2014?
Not new information. I saw the history that you bring there.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, next.
I'll ask one question. Dan, are you talking dates of delivery to Pips in Chestertown, or are you talking about dates on the box?
These on the boxes,
Okay.
delivery dates, yes, when they were invoiced.
Do you have any further response in regard to the issue raised? You don't have to. If you don't have any response, you don't have to say anything, just to say something, but respond.
Based on the investigation, the dates in which they were brought to Delaware really has no bearing to us. The fact that they were from Maryland, since they were good Maryland, doesn't matter to us when they were brought. The crime is the same.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I'm not sure that it has any bearing on this case either, but we've heard a lot of information that doesn't really have any bearing on this case.
Agent Allen is here. I don't know, do you have anything to add that hasn't already been testified to? If what you have has already been testified to, there'd be no need for you to testify. But if you have anything in addition to what's been said, this would be the appropriate time for you to testify.
I do not have anything additional.
Well, I would like information on who exactly you are, what you do for Comptroller or Delaware.
Sir, I'm Agent Vince Allen. I'm assigned to the Maryland Comptroller's Office. Approximately 1 year, hired from the Maryland State Police. Prior to the Comptroller.
And you were acting as an investigator.
Yes, sir. That's correct. We conducted surveillance together. Constant contact during the surveillance of the van up to Labrador Lane.
Inspector Edler, is there anything that you wish to add?
No, I testified back in February. Nothing's really changed since then.
Reports and the photographs are already in evidence from the prior hearing.
Yes.
I think if there's any further evidence, or if you have anything else to add, I think that would be the evidence.
Okay.
I want to. So, to make it crystal clear, it is not legal to obtain Maryland alcohol or store Maryland alcohol that's been purchased in a store in another state?
Well, there's two alleged violations before the board, and they are state violations. The county has regulations, local regulations that mirror the state. The first one is that alcohol is to be stored on the licensed premises. All premises to get a liquor license, as you know, they submit a diagram or a drawing or plan of where the premises is. There is an exception to that. You could store it in an approved warehouse, but that has to be approved. Now, there's case law, Mr. Saunders has supplied this, that just because somebody owns or is on a license, that doesn't mean that they can't have alcoholic beverages at their home for personal use. So this regulation doesn't bar a licensee from having personal alcoholic beverages at their residence. But you cannot store inventory of the establishment anywhere outside the licensed premises unless you have a warehouse that's approved off-site. The second violation is, or alleged violation is, there is a delivery law that it is a violation of the alcohol code to deliver, for a retail establishment to deliver alcohol for sale without approval. If someone wants to deliver, they have to come to the board and get approval in your packet, and the state laws in your packet as well. So, for example, if a liquor store in Kent County has a customer that lives in Queen Anne's County, the liquor store can't, even with permission, can't deliver the alcohol to the customer in Queen Anne's County. So here is, in Mr. Saunders' memorandum, the defense appears to be, and he'll have an opportunity to speak to this.
Mr. President, I just don't think this is appropriate. He's giving his closing argument, rebutting my arguments in my memorandum. I haven't even had a chance to talk yet.
We'll see.
I think he's answering the question I asked.
That's the question you asked, and then
I asked him, Dan.
Okay, well, but he's going beyond answering the question.
Well,
He's giving legal arguments in rebuttal of mine.
this is not a court hearing, and you're much more adept at courts than we are. This is an administrative hearing. So the question I have is delivery for sale. From what is presented so far, it doesn't seem that the delivery of the product to a residence in Bear was for sale.
There's been no evidence presented. The evidence, the only, that has been placed in Mr. Saunders' memorandum. There's been no testimony from witnesses of any sale.
Right.
What is before you is there was surveillance done at Pips where boxes that appeared to be alcohol or consistent with alcohol were transported in Delaware. They went down a street where Mr. Cristiano lives. The van was seen leaving that street without the boxes.
We got all that.
That's essentially where you are with the evidence.
Mr. Saunders?
I'm just going to make a presentation to you. I'm not going to call witnesses. I think it's probably time to put this case into perspective. I understand it's an administrative hearing and the strict rules of evidence don't apply, but some element of fairness has to apply, and the reason why these cases of liquor were stored in Mr. Cristiano's garage have really nothing to do with what's before you. It's an attempt to make this look like it's something really bad, and therefore you should just ignore what the charges that you're dealing with are. The charges are off-premises storage, and you've got the invoices. You've got the invoice from the day of this delivery where Mr. Cristiano purchased this liquor from Pips, and his partner took it to Delaware. So it wasn't being stored for retail sale. It was his. He bought it. Whether he owns the store or not. I mean, this is just so out of proportion. It borders on unfair. So, what does the law say? And we've given you the Court of Appeals case, so you don't have to take our word for what the court said. And it dealt with an identical situation where a liquor store owner was storing liquor at home. And the Court of Appeals said, that doesn't count. That's not a violation of this statute. It's his liquor. He can store it any place he wants. If you had evidence before you that he was taking this liquor, and that's certainly the innuendo in the reports that were delivered to you initially, if you had reports that he was taking this liquor off the wholesaler's truck and putting it in a van and taking it to Delaware, one thing, that's not what you have before you. The only evidence you have is that he bought this liquor on the books at Pips and took it to his home. That's not a violation of the law. The Court of Appeals has said so. You don't have to rely on my interpretation of the law. The notion of delivery, it's a little bit more complicated because, and the reason it's complicated is this is such a technical situation. This is such an attempt to take essentially mundane activity and turn it into something illegal. Everybody in this room knows that every liquor store, or most of the liquor stores in this county, deliver regularly to customers. And my guess is that none of them, correct me if I'm wrong, have a permission slip on record in the liquor board. Permission to deliver. I certainly am fairly certain that no liquor establishment has ever been prosecuted in this county for delivering liquor to customers.
You done?
No.
Well, roll on then. I'll wait till you're done.
And so, is that an excuse? Maybe not. But it also takes this thing beyond the realm of fairness. If the issue is, if we're going to be technical about this ordinance, oh, technically we have a delivery here. Well, nobody has seen a delivery to a person. All we've seen, the evidence is, even if you adopt a circumstantial evidence, is that went and put some liquor in somebody's garage. That's not a delivery to a person. That's putting liquor in a garage. But more importantly, and that's coming out of the ordinance. It says delivery to a purchaser. It doesn't say to a purchaser's residence or someplace convenient to a purchaser. It says delivery to a purchaser. But anyway. A retail dealer is defined as a person that sells an alcoholic beverage to a person other than a license holder. So selling liquor to be licensed, you have to sell to a person who is not a license holder. And by the same token, to run afoul of this delivery ordinance, you have to have delivered to a person other than a license. And Mr. Cristiano is a license holder. So if there was a delivery, it was to a license holder. And I suggest to you that there wasn't. Now, we feel compelled, because of all this innuendo, we have felt compelled that Mr. Cristiano keeps in his house. Not that we should have to. If he wanted to have a warehouse full of liquor in his house, as long as he owns it as opposed to Pips owning it, it does not run afoul of the ordinance. There is no evidence that he was keeping it for resale. And there is evidence that he has a lot of other uses that he puts liquor to. He has a lot of parties. Gives a lot of gifting. I've given you a couple examples of thank you notes from charities. I have a stack of additional thank you notes from Delaware charities. But the fact is that if this makes him happy to take advantage of the fact that maybe he can buy liquor a little cheaper than other people, and he likes to have it around his, lots of explanations as to why they dismiss these charges. because something was left off the warrant. I mean, come on. There is no probable cause to search his house in this case. That's why they dismissed the charges. But even if there was, they found some liquor that he had purchased that's got Pip's name on it. So what?
We're not here to deal with the
The Delaware charges.
charges or Delaware code or whatever.
I know.
What's
So,
here.
but Delaware's not dealing with the Delaware charges, yet they're still here.
Not relevant.
And so if there was a delivery, it was in Delaware. If there was a storage, it's in Delaware. You don't have any jurisdiction to penalize people for something that happens in Delaware. There's no delivery. You're a Kent County Board of Commissioners. You have jurisdiction over what businesses and license holders do in Kent County.
Which says they can't deliver out of Kent County. And you just said they did make deliveries because this gentleman purchased, correct?
It says they can't deliver in Kent County, outside of Kent County, but
So,
no evidence that they delivered to a person. It doesn't say deliver to a place, it says deliver to a person.
It doesn't say to a person, it just says
All right.
delivery. It just says delivery. I want to be exact. Okay.
If you can't sell to, if you're only prohibited from selling to a person, you're only prohibited from delivering to a person. But, I mean, let's come down to earth here. You know, we've got all this manpower and all these people who did all these things. The storage is a nothing. The Court of Appeals has spoken. That's a dead issue. So it comes down to a delivery. How much manpower and time and effort and penalty are we going to associate with somebody who delivers illegally, by the way, to themselves, to their own house?
I have a question.
I got a couple. Earlier, it was said that one of the gentlemen pleaded the fifth, correct?
Yes.
And it was questioned.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
One of your people that you represent actually pleaded the fifth. And you're not willing to let them talk up here this evening?
Because of what the state of Delaware is doing. As you heard, Mr. Connell is still facing criminal charges in Delaware. His Delaware counsel will not let him testify. And I'm not happy about that, but Delaware's put him in that
Who are
position.
you representing? Just,
I represent all three of the liquor license holders.
and you won't let him,
Correct.
but he did plead the fifth on the,
So what? I mean, what's that got to do with anything?
to me, it's a question I needed to ask.
And by the way, we postponed this hearing 60 days ago because inspectors and the detectives weren't here, so you all could ask them questions. But yet, you don't see a problem with the fact that we're not able to ask them any questions.
I'm not happy about the fact that you can't ask them questions, but they're really, the facts are not all that unclear.
But what I just stated is true. I mean, we postponed this hearing 60 days to give your side a chance to question this side. So I think it is causing you a problem.
And just so I can be clear when I have to make my decision, the concept that the basis that you're going on is the fact they delivered it to a garage, not a person, yet your next statement was, but it's the owner of the store that it was purchased from and delivered to his home, and his home in Delaware. So again, the main case we have here before us is the fact that it left Kent County, Maryland, and was delivered outside county lines, not just 2 bottles of wine that you just said all these liquor stores do, or whatever, 117 cases.
No, that's not the evidence in front of you.
What's,
The evidence in front of you is there were a few boxes in the back of a van, and the invoice that's in front of you says that there were something like 12 cases. When and where and how those other cases got there.
that were marked Pips?
Not before. And some of those cases were marked Pips, and many of them were marked Delaware.
Of the 117 cases?
Yes.
Re-question. How many cases were marked Pips, Maryland, or Kent County? I know you said a couple had the tags torn off.
Can I use my calculator real quick?
Use my fingers and toes if you want.
Sir.
Do you mind doing that one more time?
Yeah.
The rest of which are marked Breakthrough, Maryland.
And it follows, none of them were marked Delaware.
And give me what the,
One out of the 117.
No.
Not one. 0 out of the 117 were marked Delaware.
and what was the second term you used? 57 were,
57 were marked for, and let me just redo that number.
yeah, please get that number right.
More marked Pips, and the rest were Breakthrough Maryland.
Breakthrough Maryland, and the term,
Distributor,
That's
correct?
distributor.
The distributor.
Each state has to distribute to their state.
Okay.
that'd be 110 cases.
All right. Any other questions?
Here's 57 again, just to make sure.
And we marked Pips.
Sir. That's Pips.
So, okay, so then 110 other ones were distributed out of the state of Maryland.
Well, we have to account for some of the tags removed as well. So you want me to add up just the ones with Breakthrough?
Yes, please.
That's 32 for Breakthrough.
What is that?
Breakthrough Beverage, Maryland was the sticker that was on the 32 of the boxes.
I don't know what Breakthrough Beverage Maryland means.
Breakthrough Beverage is a distributor, and Maryland is where the distributor is out of.
And so the balance would have had labels cut off.
The rest either had labels cut off or no labels at all.
Okay.
Like when I say labels missing, it's visible that the labels are removed.
How many of those?
There was about 89 cases that come out of the state of Maryland.
Right. Visible cases.
That we know of.
The rest is
Could be more if those ones that had labels ripped off, but there's 89 that you can identify that come out.
Does anyone have any other testimony at all? Say?
The only thing I want to say about that is, despite essentially the state of Delaware going through every bottle box and the entire inventory in Delaware, they found not in the Delaware store, they didn't find a single bottle that came from Maryland.
Okay.
So Where they came from is not the issue here. The issue is there any evidence before you that they were being sold as opposed to kept for personal use?
All right. If you have no other questions, go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to offer this. It appears that it's an either-or situation here. Either the alcohol is being stored off premises in a place that's not licensed, or it was a retail sale that was delivered without authorization and delivered out of the county. Assuming Mr. Cristiano purchased the alcohol, but he did that in the capacity as a retail purchaser. He didn't buy it wholesale. I think that in the statute, when you talk about this delivery to a purchaser rather than a license holder, I think that's because a distributor could deliver it to a license holder. You're not going to find a distributor guilty if a distributor is delivering to a bar, restaurant, liquor store. I don't think Mr. Cristiano can have it both ways. He's either acting in the capacity as a license holder or he's acting in the capacity of a retail purchaser. So assuming that he is acting in the capacity of a retail purchaser, then he personally would have to take the alcohol off site. That's not what the evidence is. The alcohol appeared to be delivered by Mr. Connell, who was not the purchaser. So it's either a situation of storage in violation of the statute and the Kent County reg, in my opinion, or it's a violation of the delivery state law and the delivery Kent County regulation. There's either Mr. Cristiano and his family acted as retail purchasers and they didn't personally take it there, or this was being stored for the establishment.
You have a question?
I have one question. Was there a, since we're going back and forth about whether it's purchased by a retailer or a wholesaler, was there a receipt of the purchase from the retail side where Pips Liquors in Chestertown was purchased, or that material was bought?
Mr. Saunders has provided some receipts.
I see this. Right.
Those, there were no, that's my knowledge, and the officers could confirm or deny this, that there were no receipts seized from the residence when the search was done, and there were no receipts seized from the vehicle when the search was done. But Mr. Saunders has provided receipts that would indicate that Mr. Cristiano was a customer. Again, if he was a customer, in my opinion, it's delivery unless Mr. Cristiano personally took the alcohol that he purchased contemporaneously at the time that he purchased it from the store.
I just wanted to clarify that. I mean, what we've given you is several examples of retail purchasers of Mr. Cristiano's in the past year.
Oh.
And the reason that is done is he and Mr. Connell are partners. And every time a bottle goes out the door of Pips, half of it comes out of Mr. Cristiano's pocket, and the other half comes out of Mr. Connell's. So Mr. Connell has a vested interest in making sure that transactions show up on the books. So that's why it's handled the way it is, and I don't know. I mean, we could go around all night about whether or not this is a technical delivery. The point is, this is this is two partners in business, one of whom makes a purchase, and the other of whom says, well, I'm going to buy your house, I'll drop it off. And I think we have to put that in the overall scheme of things and say, why is this a huge deal? I just think it needs to be handled in perspective and not turned into this, all the innuendo that goes with this case.
What we'll do is we will recess for a few minutes, deliberate, make a decision.
Way to come through. You did more than
I just noticed it.
But because if
See that on the receipt?
So like it's put on the spot, so adding up stuff. That's right.
For the record, we're going to,
I read this.
Tom, for the record, we're going to be consulting with legal counsel.
Going into closed
Go to
session.
closed session to consult with legal counsel. Is there a motion?
I motion it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done.
We pretty much go.
Under a bigger metropolitan county. And those members of the board are just the board. So it's on your motion in our favor. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
that's an average, right?
We talking about price?
Yeah, I'm just here.
We would have broken it down. If I do alcohol, we've got a form. I don't have to. We not have alcohol, so I didn't need to do that.
Inventory phase of cases. Okay. It's actually one of the places we do.
We all sound like I sound like you're on my kid yet. That's when we started counting. This is a different set of rules than I didn't know. Now, is it a, like, or for, like, distilling, like, water or anything you want to do? We got one up in the office and we put that together. You know, I was really. I wanted Maryland or not. I'm going to find everything. But I said, what mom?
Yeah.
Hey. Check it out. We're going to that is very likely one of Maryland. I was expecting to see this elaborate building. Basically, 4 gigantic trailers that were electric with heating on them. And, you know, like, when I saw that, I'm like, you can buy that? I said, every little village and every bigger guy that makes blocks, he wants to graduate some years. And then he just wants to see it. So, you don't need the smoke and have an electric heating. Go down and think about it. Girlfriend, whatever. The weekend, Walker Street, you got a brewery down there, and you got some distillery down there. I realized I've been a police officer longer than you. 30 years? Yeah, you got me. I started in 86. Well, he was. Well, it struck me when you sent me the Facebook page. I looked at it like, oh. I thought actually it surprised me because I thought you guys were mostly retired. She was like brand new. First time we played. Remember that first game? You need to do first he was a shop. He's like still kind of hard, like Now, do you have to go Delaware State Police? Me and I just had that training with the Aspen Starter School with we didn't go there. Delaware's got, it was pretty cool. Delaware State Police / Health Department.
I knew it was cheaper
whatever
by
you guys call Health Department.
20 cases every
Like if you have a hurricane,
I didn't know it was.
Ash, whatever. This gigantic warehouse had all the places, like brand new trailers. Everything was lined up, and it was all shelf stocked with Pampers.
Yeah, the demon warehouse.
That's what we had our training at. And then I was looking. Should have got us and you guys. We obviously lived too close to Dover. I live on to get everything out. What me and my partner did. Hey, casino, because I've been to Harrington. Yeah, I've been to Harrington on weekends. I've never been bigger down. Casino. And this was a weekend. Like, same people were there to our Walmart. You know, it wasn't. The weekend crowd might be different, but the day crowd.
Yeah, we're having exactly much better. Horse pretty good.
No.
That one's busy.
I was 31 again. That hurt me. Because he's not that smart, but he gave information.
Oh, man. Someplace on the side of yourself, wings and pieces. It's just because you had a six-pack. It's not my problem. Remember that.
All for application.
Ready? Can you imagine? And I'll raise all the lessons. It's over like 28 bottles.
Well, I remember you. The prosecutor wants this case wrapped up. He wasn't thrilled to do it.
It's like taking it on the JV going to get the first one.
And then we get the same thing. We got it's a two double sword. A district court, a circuit court judge, is eventually going to hear a case. He's eventually going to hear a case. He doesn't put a rule. So he likes it. Fine. Because when it gets up there and there's a mistake in it, he's not ruling against it. I've done search warrants when I was a King PD. Have computer technology then. Like Xeroxing and stuff like that. One cut and paste. I left a complete paragraph out. Matter of fact, I think the paragraph that was in there was related to somebody else's search warrant. And the judge signed it. It went all. I didn't realize it until I was looking at it. I really didn't even read the warrant.
Part of that has to do with his wife.
Jersey? In Jersey? So you work up north the whole time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And some. All right. Well, let me ask you this. Now we're 8 man. Right.
They got turkeys. I got the pig. Well, if you want to grow my this, no. I mean, that's a lot of numbers. I would say.
That he keeps it there at the campsite?
Whole body action.
Oh, yeah.
That's where we were saying.
Well, when I was in the Navy, I went to high school, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go to that right in here. First time. Oh, what's that one that's about? Right, because I'm like literally.
What's that main road that goes from Cape May all the way north? I'm taking the camper across the ferry, which is nice. It's expensive, but nice.
Hey, how much is it? Like $80 one way.
But the first time I did it, it was Memorial Day weekend, and I live on shore, so I was like, drive all the way up and then worry about getting the bathroom. The ferry was a nice trip. The cool thing was, the first time I went up there, it had all the overpass. This is really stopped now. Well, they didn't have it stopped. Now they made overpass. And the cool thing, like, north I'm going against it. I got a motor home now, so I didn't know how much it is. I think you did about 90. That was way. I think it depends on the day.
Just break the glass. Yeah, just don't break the glass.
First time I heard that.
Okay, we gotta get the right place here. Okay. Have a motion to go back into open session?
Motion to go out of closed and back it open.
Second.
Proper move in second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are back in open session. We have deliberated, I guess is the right term, and found that there was a violation of Kent County local law of section 4507 in fact that alcohol was purchased from Pips Liquors by Mr. Cristiano, but delivered to a place outside of Kent County by who was his name? Someone else, which is in violation of that statute. As such, and since this is a first offense, the board issues a fine of $1,000 as well as a suspension of license for a period of 30 days. Okay. The county attorney will follow with a letter to all involved, detailing specifically all of the things that were in violation in the finding. Okay.
Mr. President, can I make a point, please?
Please.
I think that a 30-day suspension will run afoul of section 24-2802 because it will result in a closure of the place of business.
This is not a closure of the and in that section 2802 specifically mentions closure, also specifically mentions suspension, and this is a suspension. The retail establishment still remain in business and sell anything else that they have for sale other than liquor under the license. Okay? With that, this hearing is closed.
Effective one.
Oh. Yes. It'll be effective at tomorrow. Or run for 30 days. Okay. Mayor Serino, Town of Chestertown, and Brian Matthews, and anyone else you want to bring forward?
Would you guys like us to sit up here?
Sir, talk about Chestertown economic vitality.
That is correct. So, Chris Serino, the mayor. This is Brian Matthews. What is your title? You're chairman of Economic Vitality for the Chestertown Main Street. In a nutshell, we're here trying to work on a package that could potentially bring a movie theater back to Chestertown and Kent County. As you all are aware, just about a year ago, we lost the only theater in the county in Washington Plaza. We were all very excited when it appeared that another company was coming in, and they actually started with some renovations this fall. And then we're all disappointed again when it appeared that the deal had potentially fallen through. Long story short, Kay McIntosh and others on Main Street have been working very diligently with the potential owners and also the Dennis Silicato, the owner of the plaza, to see how close they were to getting this deal done. And it turns out there was about a $75,000 shortfall between the capital these gentlemen plan to invest in the theater, which is upwards of $500,000, and what they really think they need to open this and get it to where they want it to be. So the town obviously thinks this would be a great amenity for Chestertown, but also the county. And basically what has transpired recently is the theater approached the town and said, would you be willing to basically make an advance of $75,000 to us, and in return, basically, you would be able to get that back through the amusement tax. So for those in the audience that aren't familiar, basically theaters do generate a very unique revenue stream in the form of a tax that really, in our area, only really pertains to theaters. I think there's a couple other venues that qualify that we don't have. So when the theater used to be open, it generated anywhere from $12,000 to $17,000 to $18,000 a year in this amusement tax. Right now, that amusement tax for Chestertown basically has gone to essentially zero. So that was a really unique request. $75,000 is a lot of money versus the size of our budget. It's also, we don't really have a mechanism in place to provide loans to private, for-profit entities looking to do business in Chestertown. So what we would like to propose is we would request that the county get involved, potentially by fronting the money to the theater through the revolving loan fund, and I hope that I got the name right. Basically, if the county could front the money to the theater owners, the town would then come on as a third-party entity, and what we would then agree to do is take as soon as the theater opens, which they, if this were to come to pass, they hope to open in time for the summer blockbuster season. And as soon as that amusement tax starts to get regenerated, the town would sign some sort of MOU. And again, I'm not an attorney, that's why this guy's here, but some sort of agreement where we would agree to make quarterly payments back to the county through the amusement tax. That again, we're optimistic that a refurbished theater could potentially generate $15,000 to $20,000 if it was truly a new theater. We would basically agree to we'll take the amusement tax and forward it to the county to the tune of $75,000. So in essence, the tool that we would have in our quiver is not to provide the capital, which would be a pretty big hit to our budget. The tool that we have in our quiver would be tax abatement that would maybe cause a little bit of short-term pain, but assuming we pay this loan back and the theater is successful, eventually the town would end up with a new revenue stream in the form of an amusement tax that we don't have right now. And I think Brian is here just to kind of back this up. This has been in the SPY. It's received a lot of positive feedback. My 14-year-old son was asking me, Dad, are you going to be able to get the theater back? For him to ask about anything other than Xbox and sports shows that there really is a lot of interest in resurrecting a theater here in Kent County.
I'm just glad we're talking about going to the movies now. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm here kind of wearing two hats. One is with the Economic Vitality Committee, work with volunteers with Main Street. My daytime gig is trying to attract businesses to Kent County. you guys work on all the time too. And so as I picture this one, the story to me is it's Friday night, you're a family in Kent County. You could be anywhere in Kent County and you want to go to the movies. You want to take your family to the movies. So what you're going to do right now is you're going to get in your car and you're going to drive to Middletown and you're going to go to the movies. You're going to go out to dinner first. You're going to go to the movies and you're going to get ice cream. Maybe you're going to gas up your car because you got to get home from there, and you're leaving all of your dollars in Middletown, Delaware. Or you could be a family somewhere in Kent County and you drive to Chestertown and you go out to dinner and you go to the movies, you get ice cream, maybe you gas up, maybe you don't, but you had a great time in Kent County and you left your entertainment dollars in Kent County. Which is why, for me, with both hats on, I think this is a great opportunity for Kent County. And I think it's my observation, a great opportunity for a public-private partnership. It's not just any business, as we know. It's an entertainment business, and it's one that isn't a Chestertown issue, it's a Kent County issue, because everybody in Kent County could go to the movies and do all those things here instead of going to Middletown. It's family entertainment that we need so bad. When we're, as you guys do it too, when we're competing to try to attract businesses to come to Kent County, we need jobs and business, and they bring the jobs, but they need things to do, and the reason to move their family here. So an entertainment business makes a huge difference to us. It's a gift that keeps on giving because of the entertainment tax. Once you're paid back in 3 years, it benefits the town and the citizens there. I think we shouldn't overlook 12 to 15 new jobs. I've heard it said here before, 15 jobs is a big deal in Kent County, new jobs. And when we look at the economic impact of that, let's say there are 15 jobs at $15,000 a year. We use a formula in our business, a conservative formula for economic impact of 1.5 times total salaries. You guys do that too. You do all. So that's $337,500 annually, economic impact from 15 jobs at that rate. So I think the risk, as I understand it, is relatively low because we've got a mechanism to pay it back. We also have a balloon payment, as far as I understand, that you know more about than I do. So the financial risk seems to be relatively low. Great use of resources to partner to get a business here with jobs. And another thing that helps, I know us a lot in my other gig, is it sends a message out there that Kent County really is open for business. They'll find creative ways to help bring a business here, and that we want to help make it happen. Competition to bring businesses is tough, as you know, because every other town and county is doing everything they can to lure them there. So to me, this is a great opportunity to send the message out there. It helps all of us that are trying to bring businesses here. So I think it's a win-win all the way around.
So just to reiterate, what the town is requesting is if the county could front the $75,000 to the theater owners, the ownership group, and we do have a representative here, Michael Klein, if you're interested in asking him some questions. They are poised to invest $500,000 in the county. The town's involvement would be that we would basically take the amusement tax that's generated and return it to you all until that debt is paid down to zero.
Well, you know what? When this all started, I've talked to seniors,
Sure.
I've talked to several seniors. I get to walk in the store, whatever. But what do you think about this? And usually it's 50-50 until you actually present how the process could possibly work. And then I even had one gentleman where, he was like, well, I don't really like the idea of it. But then I said, well, what would we have done as far as amusement with our park systems? A few years ago, we paid $50,000 for the college's courts they had there to put them out to our park. To entertain, to keep seniors, predominantly seniors, they love playing that and keeps them young and so forth. But our seniors want the theater too, and in just a few years, we're going to be well over 40% of our population is going to be seniors. By the year 2025, I think the estimate is. So I look at it as a combination package. I see the risk very low. I think that's what our revolving loan fund is there for, to help and assist. If this guy was coming here with $50,000 and asking us for $500,000, see ya. But that scenario, so I'm at liberty to say I'm with you. I know some people don't see it as a viable thing that we should be doing. County already does it. We already have this fund set up to do this.
Well, I think that's what's attractive to the town is that you all already have a mechanism, and if we were to front this money, we would basically be creating a mechanism, and if we can use a pre-existing program that is basically designed for this type of initiative, I know it's a little bit unique, and that it's the size of the loan is a little bit unique. The amusement tax makes it really, really unique in a good way, though. That's what's attractive to us, obviously.
I like the partnership.
Yeah, and I love the partnership. So everybody has some skin in the game. And these guys have the most skin in the game, but the town and the county both have some skin in the game here.
I like the idea. I mean, I'm there. I like the idea. As Billy's pointed out, there's a revolving loan fund that's already in place.
Right, exactly.
We're just lending it to someone, Verizon, I think's the name. And how it gets paid back is really not relative. I mean, as long as we get paid.
And he's gotten burned a couple times too. So.
Well, no, that's always a
sure.
problem.
Anytime you loan money, it doesn't come with that risk. Sure.
It's short 75,000. It just seems to me, at the outset, they seem to be undercapitalized. If they're undercapitalized, then question is how they're going to make a go of it to do that. That said, our revolving loan fund has a cap of $50,000 right now, and those rules would have to be changed.
I understand that. Yes.
My understanding from what you have said, that you're saying that Chestertown is willing to guarantee the loan.
I don't know that we would guarantee the loan. We have talked to the theater owners. They had made overtures that if the amusement tax doesn't pay this.
Well, the amusement tax is not relevant to the county. It's actually repaying the loan is.
I understand, but the way that the town would be involved to pay you is through the amusement tax. So doesn't that make that relevant?
If we accept that as an argument, I don't.
Okay.
Well, I would also suggest that it's clear, as long as the agreement's written properly, that 3-year balloon would be the payout as a whole from the developer at the end of that 3-year note.
Sure.
Correct?
But the town is willing to guarantee this.
I don't know how we would do that.
Promissory note.
I think that's something that we would have to discuss, when this deal gets consummated. I think the town could, I think we can guarantee that we could forward the amusement tax to you guys. Now, if we're going to be on the hook for, if these guys don't go under in a year and a half, then that's something that I don't think I can make that decision unilaterally right here before you guys. So I think that's something we could certainly consider. But again, I'd have to run it by my council.
Are you willing to come up and talk to us for a few minutes?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Okay, so my questions are about the $500,000 you're bringing to the table. Completion of construction, day of opening, all that put into one little pot for me.
Yes. The thing that I've wanted to bring to your attention is that the opportunity that we have here to put a theater in Chestertown is exciting to us to do this. And I just wanted to talk about some of the conversations that I've had. Like the mayor said, we started renovations. We had to stop them. But when my name was put out and that we were putting a theater, the community feedback was positive all around. I had calls from the high school where the radio show was going to do something at the theater where I was going to allow them to come in, review the movies, go back and put it out on the radio. Washington College was going to do the same thing. Film Arts Festival, the same thing, wanted to do something very exciting. So one of the things that I want to put out there is that this really is a community theater. We're an independent theater operator, which aren't too many anymore. So really it's important for us to get involvement from the community. I know that made mentions of what happens if the theater goes under within a year. Well, that's not our plan. As a business owner, we wouldn't try to open up a business, invest over $500,000 in the business, and go out within a year. We've talked about the 3-year. If we don't have it paid back within 3 years, at the end of the 3-year, we will pay the initial remaining balance of that loan back. The big thing is that this theater is going to be totally renovated, completely. Seating, sound systems, it's going to be the state-of-the-art digital. And I think that's exciting for this community since, like you said, the entertainment tax is now zero. The entertainment that we have in the community really doesn't exist as you have in other larger communities. And the attraction that that is going to bring to, I think, the town and the county itself, I think it's all positive. Everything, like I said, everything that I've heard has been nothing but a positive feedback that they want the theater. Everybody wants it, and how are we going to do that? So I think it's something that we can do. We think we can do it here. We think we can have a great impact, and we think we can. The turnout is going to be tremendous for us. That's why we say within 3 years we plan on having it paid back. We think we can do it because of the feedback that I have gotten, emails, phone calls, news articles. Chestertown Spy, Kent County News, like I said, local high school, and everything else, that we feel that this is a home run hit for us. We feel once we get it renovated, we want to have it done by Memorial Day, but as long as we keep waiting, we have to order the equipment, the digital projectors, the sound systems, the screens, the seats, the concessions, the popcorn, and everything. So we're really hinging on ordering that stuff to get it in, to do the renovations, to complete everything. So as we wait, we get closer to the big openings, the big movies. So we're trying to get there in time. I'm optimistic that we're going to make it, but I hope that we'll be close.
I'd ask one more thing. What about if this loan is put in hand and the way it's been structured, you're putting $500,000 in. Can our $75,000 be the last? After we see, or 50% through your project, just so citizens see that you're out there doing what you say you're going to do, or does that $75,000 have to be up front just to say? I mean, we can put it in writing.
Yeah, we need $75,000 up front, because what that does for it, we've already started with some renovations. If you've seen some of the pictures in the newspaper where we took out the old seats, and if you've been in that theater, you know what I'm saying, how it was run down and how it wasn't renovated over time. And when I look at that, I see why the theater closed. I see why people went to Delaware. I can see why you don't have one. The theater owner before didn't want to renovate. He had signage up that said cheapest tickets, and no wonder they would. It was horrible. It was a horrible theater. I don't blame the citizens from this community going to another theater. When we're done renovating that, you will not want to go to Delaware to see a quality movie. It will be a first-run theater. We have booking people in place to actually book these movies. We will have the big blockbusters. And we hope to also have small independent films. I've heard from people that they want to have other type of films. We are able to do that. We're able to show those kind of theaters as well. We can have that. As being an independent theater owner, we can get that kind of theater, those kind of movies in to show.
I think those kind of theaters probably would be good in an arts and entertainment kind of living. Of Chestertown.
One of the questions, I have many questions, but one of the questions I have is that $75,000 for an organization that has multiple theaters throughout the state, it seems like $75,000 is a small amount. Of course, this is why I had this statement to Mayor, it seems to be undercapitalized.
Right. And I can understand how you reserve about saying $75,000, but Chesapeake Movies is a separate entity from Horizon. This is basically we're branching off from Horizon. Now, Bob and Ira are partners in this with me for this venture that we're doing. So they have other projects at other theaters where they're using it. So currently Marley Station is they're renovating that to update it. One of the things that we do is we currently renovate our theaters. They go back and they renovate them over and over again. So you put out the money to renovate theaters, and we got to decide how far out do we leverage ourselves. The $75,000 that we're asking for is a great help to us to be able to do the things that we need, the concessions, the bathrooms and stuff, that gets us where we can use local businesses. I've been in contact with the local companies in this area to do the renovations, to do whether we need the plumbing work done or we need painting done or whatever. So we're going to use local businesses to do this. We're not going to outsource it from someplace else and bring them in from other places. I've already been in contact with many companies in this area to do the work. So part of that money that we're getting, at the $75,000 we're asking for, in the $500,000+ that we're going to use, is going to stay local. We're going to use that, other than some of the theater equipment, which we have to get from other sources. But some of the manual labor and construction of this theater will be done through local people.
So the intent is that you or your entity would be signatories to the promissory note.
They're not able to be here today, so I can't speak on their behalf. I mean, I can get back to
Saying
let you know.
your organization.
Right.
It's going to be
somebody's
Pro
gotta sign
1,
for
Pro
it.
2, us.
Right.
Okay. This would be very unique.
Yes, it will.
I think the community. I think the community is going to be very thankful if it goes through. I mean,
Well, my concern is, I understand and I support the concept, but these are still taxpayer dollars.
yes.
And we do have a fiduciary responsibility, which I take very seriously. Can't speak for my colleague, but I do.
And I agree that, one of our major roles as a commissioner is to pay attention to the taxpayers and our tax dollars and their investments. Although, in saying that, we set up this revolving loan fund, and we put a certain amount of money in it, and it's to be used to help fund businesses. And obviously, any business that comes to us is going to be some risk to it, because if they weren't risk, they'd went to a bank. So when we developed this revolving loan fund, we know what we were doing. We were putting some money aside to try to encourage some small businesses that might have trouble getting all their funding from another avenue. So I don't see, at least this business, I'm personally willing to take a chance on this business. I see it as a business that is not going to help just a few people, but has the ability to maybe help everybody in Kent County that likes going to the movies, and it's just recreation for Kent County. So I'm satisfied to loan the $75,000 under those terms. I think it's a good investment for Kent County. It's a good bet.
I think the town would agree.
Caroline County.
Yeah, hopefully
From other counties.
no question about it. And I can tell you, I've lent money through this revolving loan fund to businesses that I weren't half as excited about as this one. And we win some and we lose some.
And this is also in a program throughout the state as well. I mean, it's just not something we made up and just do. It's a program that we've utilized through the state. Sometimes the state supports it. Sometimes the state don't. Sometimes we step out of that boundary and comfort level and do it the way we see fit. And when you've got something, again, I go back to Parks and Recreation. As much as we spend millions of dollars for Parks and Recreation to serve citizens of the county, and I know this is a private sector entity, but we do that because of the citizens. So if that was a motion, I'll second it. If that wasn't a motion, then we'll talk about the motion.
Let's do it this way, then I'll make a motion that we approve, is it Horizon?
It will be actually Chesapeake Movies Incorporated.
I make a motion that we loan $75,000 startup money to
Chesapeake
Movies.
With the support of Chestertown.
Through Kent County's revolving loan fund. Something that's already in place to do this type of work with the support of the town of Chestertown.
I'll second that.
Probably moving second to loan $75,000 through the revolving loan fund to Chesapeake
Movies.
Movies. We'll get that right eventually.
Once you go there,
Get used to it.
Discussion. The only discussion I would have is that if this is approved, then that our attorney craft the appropriate, or whoever does.
No,
Or you do? Or does,
sometimes I draft them, sometimes I review them. If
okay.
we already have a note prepared, I will review it. If we do not have a note prepared, I will prepare it.
Right, we don't have a note reviewed, and in the past, ESAC helped us prepare those.
Okay.
documents.
But the caveat would be if Chesapeake Movies
Yes, sir.
executes the note, then Chesapeake Movies is responsible for the repayment of that note at our prevailing interest rate. You have to work out a relationship, agreement with Chestertown as far as the tax and whatever that.
Agreed.
We would not be part of that.
Understood.
Okay.
You good with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. No further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good
Hope to
luck
see you on
there.
opening night.
I want to get tired driving to Middletown all the time.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Dr. Karen Couch, Superintendent of Kent County Public Schools, and members of the Board of Education. Too numerous to name. Thank you for your patience. Good to see you.
Ah, hey, Mr. I.
How are you doing? How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Have my copy. So if somebody
Okay.
Same old, same old.
President Pickram, Mrs. Heller, and members of our commissioners. We're here this evening because I thought, at least the way I understood it when we were here presenting the 6-year facility strategic plan, that you all wanted to have further discussion with regard to this, in particular as it pertains to Wharton Elementary. So I thought it would be prudent for us to come and have an honest dialogue and discussion about concerns you might have and potential questions and or wherever else you would like to go with the discussion. So I would open it up with regard to that and see where you would like to go.
I think, start off with I think our understanding is the desire strategically to move your administrative offices from Rock Hall. It used to be Wharton Elementary.
Correct.
And also the information that we have, which may or may not be accurate, but we assume that it is, that the amount of renovation that it would take to renovate the facility in Wharton would be quite substantial.
In the strategic plan, we said not to exceed $300,000. And what I shared with you at the time when we presented the 6-year facilities plan and the non-recurring costs, there was a request for $58,000 for that. And with the understanding that that would put us into that building with the rest of our staff doing the remaining work. With regard to if there needed to be some walls constructed or we do have an electrician on our staff, and if it means adding additional electrical plugs or that kind of thing, we would do that ourselves. And I think what I heard from my board was to spend as little as possible to get into the building and not to, certainly if we did not have to use $300,000, then we wouldn't use that. So certainly it's well under $300,000. Now, we also talked about, would there be costs to move? And we decided that we would rent U-Hauls if we had to, use our own staff, and we would move ourselves. We're not interested in retaining any services to move.
What about the roof of that facility?
certainly the roof at some point in time will need to be addressed. It is, if you look at it in terms of relative with our other buildings, with our remaining buildings, it is probably the one that falls to the bottom of the list with regard to which ones are in greater need. Galena, Rock Hall being the ones that need the most work, and then of course the high school would be the next one. Well, I know we talked about the middle school, but the middle school really is going to be based on a feasibility study with regard to what we do with it as we move forward, and we kind of delayed any further decisions with regard to the middle school based on, you know, how much money it's going to take to improve, because there's a lot of unknowns with regard to that. The HVAC needs to be replaced. The roof is certainly in poor condition. So if you're going to look at all of the costs to renovate that, I think we need to look at, I know in my former district, I have to say this, we had an interesting look at when is that breaking point when you have to replace a building, or when is it, you know, makes sense to renovate. So there's that. Feasibility study is incredibly important, because you have to look at whether those dollars are going to be extend the life for another 20 years, or is it going to last another 50? So, I mean, I think the same principles would apply here as well. So that feasibility study would have to factor into that. So, you know, in the greater scheme of things, yes, it will have to be looked at. Now, the other thing I would note, that because we wanted to look at a three-year-old program to put into that building as well, it would then be an educational facility. So it would no longer be 100% on the county to replace the roof. It would be a shared project with the state and the county. So it would then be eligible for funds from the state.
If I could, I kind of said this the last meeting we had, was that I think the idea of the consolidation, when we all started talking about it, was the fact that we wanted to take and stop spending money in bricks and mortar and start putting it in the classroom with teacher salaries, resource officers, mental health, social workers, whatever's needed to educate the pre-K to 12 that we have. The idea of moving the central office as one of the primary things that we want to take care of. Now, first of all, the home you have now is probably the best building that you own. It has geothermal heating. The day you move out of that, somebody owes $500,000. Once you vacate that, we're going to owe $500,000 to pay that off. Talking about $300,000 to put petitions in Wharton or less to turn it into office space. The capital improvement program or projects as listed has got Wharton Elementary listed for $14 point some million worth of improvements, of which $8.3 million of that will be county money. So the day that you say we're going to keep that, and we're looking at $500,000 to pay it off, $8.2 million worth air share, just air share of renovations, and then you're moving out of a building that costs $50-some thousand a year to heat into a building that costs, according to your own figures, will be over $100,000 to heat. And when you're talking about a small county that wants to start driving money into the classroom and get away from spending it on bricks and mortar, I just think that's a bad choice, and I think that's not where our priorities lie. If in fact we lived in a perfect world, I mean, that if I'm going to sign off to spending that kind of money, it's going to be on one of the schools got kids in it. And when we feel comfortable that we've done all we need to do for our pre-K through 12, then we can talk about expanding. But I want to make sure we're going to be asked to put up a lot of money for teacher salaries. This resource officer thing, we just hired one. There may be more to come. How would you say no to that with what's going on around the country? Yeah, the one request of a social worker a while back they voted in, there wasn't any money until we had a meeting just like this, and we pointed out where there was close to $900,000, and then you read in the paper that, well, the commissioners want to talk the talk, let's see if they walk the walk, and I don't know what that was to refer to, because we didn't have a thing, all you had to do was go do it. So I think we've got to reevaluate this and stop, if the idea of consolidation hasn't changed, that we want to do away with bricks and mortar and start putting it directly where it's going to do the good with the kids, then I think we're on the wrong track. If I'm going to sign off to spend $8-point-some million in renovations, it's going to be to a middle school or one of these other schools where we have children. And saving that kind of money with one move, look at all it could do to help with teacher salaries, programs, whatever, resource officers, social workers, all the stuff that really goes a long ways in educating kids. I won't sign off when I go back to talk to the other two. And I tell you, if we take it out of the budget, your operating budget, to move it, then I'll vote against the budget.
I'm
not
going to quite say it the way Ronnie said it, but I would, as I've talked to many of the board members, I've talked to Dr. Couch. We're in a very, and this is a conversation night. We're in a very peculiar situation here where millions upon millions of dollars in multiple places in the county are getting ready to have to happen. You've been reading about the courthouse. It's $11 to $13 million, and that's right now we're just in the process of doing a feasibility study. But there's proof that absolutely we have to have a renovation there of some kind. Sheriff's Department, emergency services, we're looking at probably a $10 to $12 million project there to do something for the sheriffs. I don't know why, and I've had this direct conversation with many people, why we can't have a county complex. We can do the study. You can be part of that and use that building for a county complex of upgrades to what we need to do. We have to upgrade our detention center. By law, we have to do that. So somebody's going to lose out, and if we're spending millions and millions of dollars everywhere, it's the school who's going to lose out, because guess what we're required by state law, and that's MOE. And if all we have left is MOE, and this year you're asking for 425, I hope we can come to some kind of agreement to do something like that. But if you see these kind of projections on your future, how do you ever move that pendulum forward and make that happen? You know, if that building costs several $1 million to renovate and the county absorbed that cost to make it a complex, I can swallow that. I can swallow that. We do a study to make sure it's all feasible. There's 28,000 square feet there. I don't know why we can't all live together out there.
So what's your complex consist of?
My complex, I can't tell you about that, but the complex there, I know, Brian. The complex there, it's, to me, Sheriff's Department, it's emergency services, dispatch, it's Board of Education, it's whatever else we can fit, things that we pay. Board of Elections, we spend $38,000 every year just for Board of Elections. If we can utilize and fill that whole building up and make it prosper for every citizen, including the Board of Education, so future dollars, millions of dollars in the future, as revenue starts to change, move forward and can go into those classrooms. I agree 100% with Ronnie on that. You know, how we go from total closures of 2 schools to brick and mortar, and I understand maybe nobody wants to give this up or that up, or if that's some of the issue. We're responsible for providing you a new school in 20 years if you need it. We, the board, whoever this board sitting here, is responsible for that. The school system's not responsible for that. We have to purchase the land if more land's necessary, and if it's in the Wharton area. But that comes 20 years. It's going to take 20 to 25 years. If projections that the gentleman gave last week, where we're flat for 5 more years, and not decreasing, we still have a 50% surplus in our schools.
Right.
And if I could add one other thing, Billy pointed out, and I haven't seen it, this is what's been relayed to me, that the school board's asking for 400-some thousand above new money. You work real hard to close Wharton and Millington, and the minute you close them and turn them over to us, you save $400,000. So if you went ahead and closed, because you don't have to heat them and take care of them, according to the budget that we've looked at, it looks as though we would probably save $300,000 or $400,000 the minute you close them. So that was the idea in the beginning, to close those two schools to try to save money, to put it into the classroom. If you close it, you probably wouldn't have to ask us for anything. Not that I'm not willing to help you if it goes in the right place. Well, I'll jump hurdles if it's going in the right. I can't see spending all this money to move a central office where, if you're looking at benefiting the children and educating kids, I don't think 70% of the kids in Kent County even know where the Board of Ed office is, or do they care?
Well, I would add to that, the Board of Ed, the debt on the Board of Ed is $457,999. There is also debt on Wharton Elementary of $207,000. So I think if we were to surplus Wharton, you still have to pay $207,000.
If we,
well, we don't have to fix it up for $8.5 million either.
But if you're going to fix it up for a complex for you all, you're still going to fix it up.
But for everybody.
Well, I know, and I'm not saying I disagree with that. Please understand me, Commissioner Short. I'm not saying that a partnership isn't. We're not saying we have to have it all to ourselves. It's either that or nothing else. I don't think anybody on the board has stated that that is absolutely what we want here. What we're saying is we believe, based on the 6-year facility strategic plan, that it makes sense to have a centralized central office, to bring our operation all together in one location. If we're going to put the bus depot there, if we're going to have a more efficient operation, it makes better sense for us to be there. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I understand that there was taxpayers' dollars, that was, and I did some research because I wasn't here at the time when all the decisions were made. So Faye Miller, love her to death, she had a big book of a lot of documentation, spent a lot of time looking through that. And one of the things that I found was an MOU that was signed between the Kent County Board of Ed and Kent County Commissioners, signed in June 2nd of 2009, where the county agreed to continue its efforts to locate a facility suitable for the Board of Ed group of administrators. And there was a specific notation that said the decision whether to acquire the new Board of Education offices by way of lease, purchase, or otherwise shall rest solely with the county. So, I mean, what I would say is it was a joint decision then in terms of going to Rock Hall. It wasn't just the Board of Ed's decision. It was county commissioners and the Board of Ed based on that. And then there was also notation that said that there would be a separate account set up. And, yes, the county did front the money for the work at the Rock Hall Board of Ed. But there, on the sale of Washington Avenue, would be used to reimburse the county for whatever money was put into it. And what I could find,
the entire discussion. The original discussion was, since I was there, was why not move the board office from Washington Avenue out to the high school that had excess capacity.
Right, and I found those documents as well, that there would have to be, which Dr. Lever had talked about last week as well, that there would have to be significant renovations in order to accommodate that. So, I mean, it was, I think what it really came down to is which was the most cost effective. And the most cost effective, obviously, was Rock Hall, because I found that the Board of Ed approved at their meeting $277,000 to do the renovations at Rock Hall. And then there was $142,000 that was approved to do the work at maintenance, for maintenance and operations to go to the high school. So that is money that was spent and is still going to be utilized. I mean, that, the departments are still there. There was $16K approved for design and $24K for moving. So for the actual Rock Hall building, it was $277,000, and then for the sale of Washington Avenue for $850, that was used for a variety of things. But in that MOU, it said all of that money was to be dedicated for use and somehow for the Board of Ed.
Well, I would just go back and suggest that taxpayers, if this, not only hear what Mr. Jack writes in the paper tonight, what Mr. Kramer writes, if this was put out to all taxpayers of the county and all citizens of the county, would they want to save millions of dollars and have justification to move us all together and do a renovation under county tax dollars, which is still going to have to be the case? Either way you look at it, $8 million, if that's what it's going to cost to fix that roof, is going to be the case in 3 years, according to this report we have. Or do we spend $8 million there, 10 or 11 or $12 million for a new sheriff's department and emergency services when we have a perfect brick and mortar structure sitting in the middle of the county that needs a roof and some renovations inside to support all those things? I will sit here and say the taxpayer is going to suggest we do what's best in that situation, which is save millions upon millions of dollars.
And what I have said is I don't think anybody here is against any of those discussions.
Yeah, just a level set. I mean, I just want it, I hope it's very clear that the decisions, I mean, this is a strategic plan, so as you do, as we do, part of it is looking forward, right, forward thinking. But looking at this, I mean, I'm not going to speak for everyone here tonight, but when we saw that number of 300,000, we stalled. I mean, there was a really long time of discussing, and I think we made it pretty clear that was the max, but certainly not acceptable. So I just want to make the point that we're watching that. In regards to, just to reiterate, I mean, it's not that, you know, I can speak for myself that I'm not open to look at a combination or look at something. You know, the whole idea with the 3-year-old program was to provide additional services, resources for our younger families that hopefully down the road, that's something else that can attract families here. And now, there's a practical side of that, right? So we look at everything, and I get that. It's just like the bills at home, right? I'd like to do a million things, but obviously I can't. But I just a question then to kind of leave that from a timing standpoint. You know, there seems to be a vision of what a complex could have. I mean, has there been any discussion as to is it a we'll wait and see until, you know, the money on the building in Rock Hall is pretty much? I'm just curious.
We can't wait for that. We're under a situation, especially with the detention center. We have to do something there by the year 2020. This, to me, sitting here, and I can't speak for my colleagues, we're talking a few years of you got to do your feasibility study on how to best structure the building. Then you start construction. We go out and we find the funding and do that. Can Board of Ed stay in Rock Hall for those 2 years? I think they can. I mean, and that also brings down the note on the geothermal systems and everything else. So I think it's all doable. I don't understand.
Are you saying this is the first time we've had this conversation?
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
That this is a building we could share, that you'd be open to share? Because I had heard Dr. Couch at one point it conveyed to us that sharing wasn't an option. Are you saying on the record?
I've said for 2 years through this whole process, I see it as a viable option. I can't speak for my colleagues.
Well, I'd asked specifically if it was an option, and I was told that probably not.
The question that was posed to me.
Would we rent it back? Would we?
No, I never said rent. I never said rent.
Can we take the acronym
Yeah.
away? I'm just asking.
Yeah.
And we share, yes.
Yes, and if that's fine. If we can, then that's a whole different discussion.
I'm just trying to point out what was relayed to us. Whether I'm not saying it come from Dr. Couch or who it come from, but someone presented a plan to us or a question to us. Would we consider allowing the Board of Ed to continue to hold on to that building, and that we would rent space from you?
Right, and I can tell you where.
No.
Right, and I can just speak to that because we talked about that during the strategic plan. That at some point, you know, did we need that whole building? It was a discussion that we had during the strategic plan meeting, and we said, does the Board of Ed need that whole building? And I said no. Could we renovate it and then lease it out to other entities? Possibly, because that was something that Dr. Lever had said has been something that's been utilized all over the state, where it's a community use, a joint facility that the district could lease back. Now, what are the terms of the lease? $1 a year? I mean, there's lots of ways in which you lease. I mean, we per se, I looked in the paper, when we looked up what we were doing, we surplused Washington Avenue and you leased it back to us for $1 a year. So, I mean, I saw that same, arrangement. So there's lots of ways in which you could lease whether it be the county or with other entities. And so if that was misunderstood in terms of what we meant long-term with what it meant with the county, I mean, I'm sure that those were things that I thought we could discuss in the future. But then after that meeting, when we had that discussion during the strategic plan, I asked, is there any interest at some point with a shared facility? And I was led to believe no. Now, maybe if it was a thought that was going to be a huge lease payment, then I could see where that's probably not an issue. I mean, that would be not desirable. But I never discussed terms. I never discussed anything. I just said, is there any desire to share the building? And I thought I heard no. And if I misunderstood, then I apologize, and now let's get back on track and figure out where we go from here.
It's out there for citizens, too. The reason why, I've had conversations that I feel that strong ownership should go back to county government and repurpose it or give it back to us, is grants and things that we can qualify for emergency services and so forth. Sometimes are contingent upon us having that ownership of that facility. And that part could be upwards of, tens of thousands to $500,000 or more.
Do we know how those grants are affected by sharing it with non-emergency personnel or anything? I mean, multi-use, does that affect grants?
We have structures like that now. No.
Right now, where our 911 center is a multi-use.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, go ahead.
We also have to please, one statement that was made that really I have to take issue with. You don't have to be physically present in close proximity, for example, to the bus parking lot. This is the 21st century. I mean, we have internet and cameras and everything else. To go out the door and have, I can see the buses. You don't have to do that anymore.
Right. I understand that. I don't think that's not it at all.
Doc, we haven't talked about this for a long time. I am thinking about, and I have a question, and hopefully maybe you guys have some solutions. I think we need a bus depot. My understanding is, and if it's not true, correct me, the Public Works would be happy for us to leave.
Correct.
Okay.
It's true.
Okay.
All right.
Very crowded parking lot.
So we develop a plan.
And we just passed the ordinance allowing a bus parking.
I know.
To that facility.
So
we still structure that facility. We have a joint meeting like this, and we discuss where's the best spot for that. Do you need more asphalt? We actually got a team that does that kind of work. But I would, I've heard rumors that want people out quicker than later. I think we still should go about that the right way and do it one time instead of piecemeal.
Right, because we were told temporary fencing, temporary cameras, and so there's an expense to that.
I still think even that we can put that off a little bit longer and do it permanent, but still within a few months. I mean, this isn't rocket science to figure out where you can put your parking lot. We just got to put it far enough away from the building so we can still utilize the building for everything we're going to do.
And another thing that's getting lost in the conversation is we got 5 other schools that got real needs, roofing issues, HVACs, all that. I would feel very uncomfortable in spending all this money on a central office and ignoring the schools where the kids are. I mean, that should be the priority, not some central office, but the schools where our kids are traveling in and out. And obviously, we can't do it all at the same time, so we have to prioritize it. And I just can't see this as a priority.
Well, I guess that's where I'm a little confused, because I'm hearing it is a priority for you to have that building for your use.
Listen, if we were to take over that building and there was room for our 911 center, who for years we've wanted to get out of the cellar because there's $1 million worth of equipment and water and sewer running over its head. If we got room to put them out there and the sheriff's department could go out there and there's plenty of room for you, that's a great project. But to turn it back to you so you can put the Board of Education and a 3-year-old program out there, and then have to make $14 million worth of renovations to the building, I just think there's other priorities out there and other places that money should be spent.
Because we do have to do Glena's roof in 2 years as well.
Pardon?
We'll have to do Glena's roof and HVAC in the next 2 years, which my last recollection was like $2.7 million for both projects, and that was with Garnet. We did it at the same time as Garnet. So that's what we're looking at very shortly as well.
Right.
So,
well, and I do want to make a clarification, just because there is some conversation about the 3-year-old, and I just want to put this out there so it's very clear. We're only talking about maximum 12 students that would be in the program. And let me tell you why that's incredibly important. And I didn't have a chance because we had a long meeting, and so I want to make this perfectly clear. The Judy Center grant is going to be competitive in FY20, which means there's not enough money to go around the state, so we're going to have to be in the group with highly competitive grants. Right now, we are supplanting what we already have, because we already have universal pre-K. So we're using Judy grant money to pay for a quasi pre-K program. So we're spending a lot of money with other agencies and other areas just so we can use our money, but we really have been put on notice from MSDE that we're on the verge of supplanting. So our thought was, if we could go ahead and start a 3-year-old program and get it, this coming year, FY19, is our last year of guaranteed money from Judy grant. So if we can, it's competitive. It's going to be competitive. So what they're going to look.
Where does that come from?
Well, then we'll have to discontinue the program. Is what we're going to have to do. But what I'm saying is.
It's competitive. It means somebody's going to do it.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is it's going to be pretty hard for us to justify getting money if we're supplanting a program that's already in place. In other words, we've already been pretty much put on notice that we're supplanting what we already have. In other words, we're already paying for something that's already universally in our school system already. I mean, universal pre-K is there. We can't really be using Judy grant money to sustain what we're already doing. You understand what I'm saying?
How much money goes towards the universal pre-K from the Judy Center?
Let's see. You're the one that looked at the grant. How much are we getting from Judy grant?
Look.
Right. So what we were told is if we dedicate this next coming grant in FY19 to the 3-year-old program, then we've been told right now we cannot pay for teachers or IAs out of the grant because we're supplanting. So if we use the Judy grant to pay for a 3-year-old program, then we can use the Judy grant to pay for the teacher, for the IA, and for the staff that would be needed. We feel like that would give us a year of really, ironing out the kinks, if you will, understand what's going to work, and get it when we know we're going to have guaranteed that money.
This year.
For FY19. And then FY20, when we put in for the grant, then it's going to be highly competitive. We believe, at least the information that we got from MSDE, that because of our universal pre-K already in place, we would be well positioned to get a grant in the highly competitive grant in FY20, just simply because we are underserving our kids right now. And Wendy Keene can speak to this too. We've got a number of our kids that right now that we identify, they're 3-year-olds that we're trying to put in place in the program. We identify them, we say, okay, well, now Radcliffe has a 3-year-old program. We put them at Radcliffe. They can't afford Radcliffe. So we've got a segment of students that are being left out because of their poverty level, because of their disabilities, their social emotional needs. There's a population that is underserved right now. We cannot meet their needs. If we can get them into a program at 3 years old, you think there's probably about 12. If we can get them into a program that we can run through the Judy Center, we can provide services to those students right away, and we're not going to see as many students as we have for instance, some you heard about, we've got some students that have great needs. We get them into school sooner, then we're going to address their needs by the time they're in kindergarten and first grade. We're talking about a segment of population that cannot go any other place, and they are basically, you're the one that sees them, so I don't know if you want to add to that.
Well, before we start adding, that program cannot be.
Yeah, one room.
I agree. Look, I have no problem with the size, space,
One room.
anything. You're talking 12 kids, but you're saying you can't start that program now.
Well,
at the Board of Education in Rock Hall. I know it's inconvenient, but somehow these kids are why?
Because it's of Chestertown, and it's because it services a certain population that are identified as high needs, high poverty, and they live in the Chestertown area. We cannot do that. Yeah.
Perhaps in Chestertown, whether it's a small operation in a lease space we already have with
that would be awesome.
Family center, if that can be expanded just a little bit for 1 or 2 years, if that's the situation, I'm just throwing this out there, that program, because you're actually trying to justify money for the future that is not justifiable at this point, because you're hoping, and we're hoping by implementing it's a grant.
There's always a hope when you get a grant, but I'm just telling you.
Also hope we may not have the same state administration this fall either.
Right, but what I'm saying is there is a well-known fact that we are underserving a population that we need to provide our services to. And if we're going to use the Judy grant to indeed address needs that are not being met within our school system, we've got 3-year-olds that we can provide this program to, and I really believe that is going to put us in a position to get the highly competitive grants in FY20.
Saying for that particular program, you need one classroom.
Yes.
That's where I'm getting. I mean, we're talking about a 28,000 square foot building being put on hold.
It's a good solution. I mean, I had leaned over to Wendy and said, but you answered
that's why.
But
we need another.
And I'm going to tell you right now, our good friend, Mr. Goodall, who owns where that facility is right now, if we can't maneuver with him and try to accomplish something, who's very pro-education, and in order to secure this for 1 year or 2 years, till we figure out all this in a few more conversations, then to me, I think it's even that's doable. If that's the point of trying to direct monies into the education system still and preventive medicine, so to speak, then I even see that as a plausible effect when you're talking about a potential savings to taxpayers of millions and millions of dollars.
Your timeline is that you think that in 3 years, this complex of work.
I can tell you we can't play around because we're under certain mandates.
I think that's what we're trying to hear in terms of, and I guess we would need to also hear the benefits. I mean, I think what I'm hearing you say, you have to have ownership in order to obtain grants. But then when you take ownership, then you're immediately going to have to pay state debt as well. So I mean, it's not
But that gets us
free
through the
clear.
next 2 or 3 years where that loan is being paid down on the Board of Rock Hall, which is $457,000, which cuts almost in half in that period of time, or at least a quarter. We'll have to get to those numbers and beat them down. But it's easier to move Rock Hall building in 2 more years than it is.
Can it be a joint-owned building? I mean, I'm just asking that question. I think we need to know what is the.
From what I said earlier, where we have to supply you ground, we have to supply you your buildings if that feasibility study comes back in 20 years, and you have to have a place for kids. That's something we have to do, or any board that sits here has to do. You guys don't go out and build your own schools. You guys don't go out and buy your own land for the schools. We
Right.
have to do that.
Well, and
As far as joint ownership is concerned, I don't know how that would work.
I'm just curious about that because I looked, and again, I'm just trying to feed my own information as well as not knowing it. But I know that we gave the county over 28 acres for the community center at the Wharton complex. I mean, that was land that could have been potentially used for a school.
That severely benefits that community, and as well as the high That was,
Well,
again, a multi...
I guess what I would say is, I question that a little bit, because my understanding as I looked back that there was supposed to be some joint use of the community center with regard to if we wanted, if we needed to use the gym and whatnot, we could work with that. And every time we've asked to use the gym, we've been charged.
I will definitely fire up about this, because just today, or whenever it was, we were talking about this, and it was saying that facility was being used for your alternative classroom for gymnasiums, et cetera. Is that because they can't go into the high school to utilize that facility? So there is a partnership there. How clear it is, and even as far as a community, I know I'm mouthing a lot tonight, but this.
Yes, you are.
The community, but it's,
And I'm just going by what staff told me, because I know you've got something to say.
The alternative school program about an hour. We're also promising our athletic facility will be able to use the gym like sheriff basketball practice was all that. We've been told we're charged for that.
See, here's another good thing about you guys being here tonight, because up until I had a conversation a week or so ago, I don't think, I was never told that. And if that's an MOU that we had an understanding that facility gets used, then that's something we have to correct as well.
Right.
I thought that the wrestling team would use.
No, we're charged.
Under the impression that the Wharton Elementary School, when it was running, used it as their gymnasium.
No. We use the cafeteria.
And on rainy days and stuff, they couldn't get the kids over there.
Just very few and far between.
Little feet takes a longer time to walk.
Well, again, I would say then that's something else that we need to have, and we can, or next meeting, because this ain't going to
Right,
be our last.
and what I would say is we have always waived our fees when the county wanted to use the high school for, the auditorium. We've always waived. I cannot. Now, what we have done is if we had to have a custodian work beyond their normal day, which now they work till 10, so that's really unique that we would have to use.
We will make that correction, won't we?
There's also a $10,000 fee that the county pays.
Today, that
Yeah,
they're,
you
we
guys
pay you
$10,000.
$10,000
Right.
a year for the use of the schools.
Right,
Program now.
Right.
So, again, these communications need to start happening.
Right.
And I'm glad we're all here tonight talking about them.
I just want to say, I like the idea of finding, especially if you can find space in Chesterton. Like you said 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't be keen about putting my 3-year-olds. I don't know where those 3-year-olds would be coming, and I asked Dr. Couch about that. And if it's the Chestertown area that apparently the demographic they're having to serve is, they're probably mostly going to live there. I mean, in that area.
Yes, in that catchment area.
If we
Trish,
end up
what area did you say there was? I missed that.
It's the catchment area, so it has to be the Chestertown area proper, and we expanded the Chestertown, the catchment area to include Coventry Farms. But essentially, it's Coventry Farms and all of the downtown Chestertown. That's the catchment area.
So, how many Head Starts is it around the county? Because I know there's one in the building that I work, and there's, they must have 20 little kids in there, and they.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's a federal program. That's not our.
But is it a duplicate service?
No. Well, they can't provide the kind of wraparound services that we can provide in terms of the public schools, because we have the speech therapists, we have the physical therapists, we have those wraparound services that we can provide once they're in our schools. So Head Start can't provide that.
I'll tell you, it even makes it even clearer to me now, because when we talked about these 3-year-old programs, I was thinking 3-year-olds
From Galena?
No. Go to a facility.
Yeah. No.
And now I find out we're talking about 12 children. That almost makes it a little more ridiculous to turn an entire Wharton Elementary School into a board office and for 12 children.
Well, we never, again, I would reiterate that we never said we were going to use the entire building. What we said was we felt it was important for the Board of Ed to move centrally located and then to look at the remaining spaces in terms of whether it was, county shared or leasing to other entities. We knew darn well we were not going to fill up that building.
I'll tell you, my opinion is that moving the board office is a lower priority versus supporting classroom education. We can make it work, fine, but that's not going to fall on my sword for that.
First of all, I'm willing to see you in 6 months or whatever, because I'm up for election too, but I would love to think that we somehow come to an agreement and,
Me
the
too.
biggest bang for the buck right now, Wharton is looking like the golden apple, everybody's seen Wharton. So,
Yes,
okay.
apparently.
Again, I'm going to say again, because I didn't get to finish my thought. I like the idea of finding some place in Chestertown for 12 or 13 children for a lot of reasons. Not the least of which is I don't want 12 or 13 children in a school where everybody else, in a building where everybody else is a grown-up, especially if it turns out to be law enforcement and 911. So I think if we could do that in Chestertown, like you said, in the LMB or one of the other, children and parents or partnerships or whatever they are, it's not an argument that I can really support by saying it's inconvenient to be going down to Rock Hall. You're right, that's a low priority. If that's the only reason we want to get to Rock Hall is because we're tired of driving there, that's not a good argument. My concern, in the spirit of full disclosure, is when the let's say, yeah, we understand, what, you guys have to have ownership of the building so that you're eligible for whatever grants or whatever you get. Say we cede ownership to you and say that's fine too. My worry is that what does sharing look like? At some point, what if after the building has been renovated, that
We don't get kicked
there
out.
isn't room for us?
Yeah.
I think it's do a study prior to that, I think, to send engineers in there to say, this is who we want in this building, see if there's room to accommodate that. And lay it out, and obviously, before we did anything, we'd all sit around and look at these drawings and say, yeah, that kind of suits me, or no, I can't handle that.
Again, I'm going to throw that out there because we do need some help on figuring out where the buses are going to go.
And there, we figure out, you go out and stake, as far as I'm concerned, you go out and stake where you want them. We get together with Mr. Morris over there, who wants them out of the county complex. We all have a meeting about it.
And the site plan review.
And the site plan review has to happen still, but again, can happen over just a few months.
Right, and I guess that's where we have to be really clear, because the place that we identified already has paving, and it's right there next to the building. So if now if we're looking at another location, it's going, we're going to have, I totally understand that. Wharton's our property at this point now too, so we looked at that and we said this is the logical place. So if we're looking at potential future uses of the building, that may not be the best location long term.
I went out there the other day, semi-trespass, it's for sort of owners do.
Did you sign in?
I didn't sign in, I
Okay.
just snuck through there.
Okay.
But that area you're talking about can very easily be grown by 100 feet and the distance it is for a very minimal cost of compaction, pavement, whatever it takes to put
Oh,
that.
you're talking about the farm area where those buildings are? Is that the area you're talking about?
He's talking about extending that space that's there currently.
Currently, and just move out towards, because your intentions were to put them on like the kindergarten end.
Yeah,
Towards 298, another 100 feet to width, and then put your permanent fence up, your permanent security. At one time, instead of, because I do not agree with spending money twice, period. And if it takes 2 months to do that, as much as we know our employees want you gone, what another 30 days to make it work right, I don't have a problem with. My colleague over here is probably jumping red in his seat, and I told me to have a discussion. I'd probably get to him. So that's it.
I'm not so much interested in the details as my colleague is. I mean, it's your program. You make it work the best way you know how. I will support that.
And I just throw this out. This is just my little personal peeve, but those temporary fences look like the Dickens.
Do.
They junk the place up.
Do.
The only people they're going to keep out is me, people like myself that can't get in there for some reason, or
Agree
yourself.
with you.
3 cameras up there
I
situated
totally
in an
agree.
area where about $1,500, $2,000 with solar tops on them. You can video that, and if somebody does come in there and mess with them, you'll find out who it is. And to start with, they're all insured, so put them there and let's go on with business. But to worry about these temporary fences, I seen that one over the bowling alley. If that was my property, I'd had you arrested.
I know, well.
That's terrible looking.
Well, and I think, just to recap, what I would say is I think you heard from the members of the board that we're willing to further discuss a joint venture. I think there's question on, the terms of the ownership of the building. I don't think that we've really had a chance to talk about that with the Board of Ed.
Whichever makes sense and is to the benefit for all concerned. If it's owned by the county and that's more beneficial for everyone, fine. If it's owned by the Board of Education and it's more beneficial for everyone, that's fine. That's why we study it and we come up with a decision, pros and cons.
I think, honestly, all we need to do to get this thing started is to, just like Trish said, you're agreeable to looking at something like that, and we are as well. Let us send somebody out there to take a footprint of the place, get an engineer to look at it to see if what we're talking about will fit in there. And nobody has to exchange property at all if you don't want to, until we all sit around and say, yeah, no, that'll work, or it won't work, one or the other.
I can tell you, being representative of Wharton and closing the school, which was not a favorable thing in my community, we're not an incorporated town, but when you talk to the politicians in the town, which are a coffee shop, there are leaders in the community, they feel that the school system should own Wharton Elementary, but I see what you guys are saying as, right now, that's a detail that can be ironed out, like to see which benefits which party the most. Because if you have to take on some debt, but you can also get grants in the long run, that's something we could figure out. But my question would be, do you three possibly think that the Board of Ed and what you guys have to come up with money-wise for 911 and the sheriff's office, without getting an engineer? I mean, because you have to. I know we have to do that, but do you think it's possible that all three? Because I tell you, the community would love that idea. Having the sheriff's office in Wharton, I can tell you that, next to the high school, especially with security.
Much better than that as far as the police.
And that has been a discussion.
Oh, yeah, right. That's probably what you absolutely need a fence then. No, but I do.
That we ever really had the talk.
Yes, the talk.
No. We've had the talk.
And we have had the talk.
We haven't had the talk.
And I'm not sure Patterson
It comes down to dollars.
Well, I just think all of us are concerned about our respective interests. You have interests, we have interests. I think as long as we have protection, I think what you're concerned about is you don't want to put money in and then all of a sudden somebody turn around and say, now it's going to be a school. On the same line of thinking, we don't want to get in there and then say, oh, sorry, you don't have room for you. Now you figure out where else you're going, and we're going to be homeless.
I hope we trust one another a little more so than that, though. If we tell you you're going to fit in there, by God, you're going to fit in there. You're not going
to see who comes to you and say, get out of
right.
county-owned building.
But you said also we would have a sit-down with the engineer and say,
Possible.
Is enough room for the 911 sheriff's office school system?
Because I'm going to tell you right now, all the numbers that all these institutions have semi-requested, including you guys, fit in there, and you still have about 4,000, 5,000 square foot. I mean, just by doing the basic numbers of what that building structure is, changing layouts, and an engineer is going to do that a little more creative than we can. But I'm telling you, with the square footage that's been sets there, and the square footage that's been requested by, I've heard you guys say how many square feet you need, what the sheriff said in here and said how big he wants his building. It's all plausible in that complex, in that facility. And
You just have to change the layout in terms of, it's a school and it can be altered.
It's A&E services.
Choice of words on my part. Obviously, it'll have to be an architect.
Pretty building? You do.
I mean,
brick and mortar, I'll tell you that,
Yeah.
Engineers can make pretty buildings.
I think just to end, we certainly never needed more than one wing of that school anyway, so that's perfectly.
Understanding the way we're going to move forward, and we will
communicate.
Communicate. we need and move forward that way.
Yep.
And we will look at, see if we can get.
A 3-year-old program somewhere?
Well, the Kent Family Center.
Architectural and engineering.
No,
But I'm sorry, the 3.
Yeah, the Kent Family Center.
Whichever.
That's going to be getting a quote from somebody, in all honesty. But we don't have space that.
No, I'm not talking about us, but I'm talking about, I just use them as a scenario, because Dick Goodall does have space.
Yeah,
And if
we
it's
don't
that
have it
place,
We will make that happen too.
That, honestly, I think Chestertown's the best place for it.
Yeah.
It is.
You go catchment area?
It's the catchment area, which is Chestertown proper, where we have a lot of our low-income families, and also we included the catchment area to include Coventry Farms. So it's that is the catchment area.
We will make that happen. Our administrator will get to you to figure out how much square footage you need.
Well, I think we need to know how much square footage. Yeah, we need that from them. We don't know.
Figure out.
We can, a classroom.
Okay.
Classroom. So we can tell you how much that is.
Did it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Good discussion. See?
And we didn't.
No.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Okay, where are we?
You can have mine. I didn't look at it. Never mind.
Wayne Morris? Yes, sir. Any butter?
I got you.
trip. Yeah, good morning. You just stay over tonight. You got a cot in the other room.
You're not charging us.
Then we'll say, and then we'll say,
Is he charging us for all this time? Look, we've entertained him tonight.
Tom charging us? Because the answer's the same for both.
You ain't hardly got nerve enough to put this down on your payroll.
That's how consultants work.
What Bill just say a while ago, you got a hard consultant, engineer to do something.
He's the one making the big bucks.
Are you saying you're an engineer now?
I do engineer work by trade. Oh, get the back.
You're in the parking lot business right now.
I know. That's so turned around.
I don't know about you, but I'm putting in for overtime tonight. Hey, this thing's supposed to keep us.
Taking extra sandwich home.
All right, that's good.
We'll be sure to pay you properly for that overtime.
Pay you 2 sandwiches tomorrow for 1 sandwich tonight.
Well, second cost, do we still need Tom here? I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do we still?
But you need me.
Out.
Yes, sir. Weed control.
Yes.
Oh my God! It's 9 o'clock at night, and you want to talk about weed control? That's.
Well, I just want to give you this.
Interested in that.
He won't, but I just want to give you the summary that Scott had passed on to me, so you can see what since you reinstituted that program. You know, he's done a lot. He's acknowledged a lot of people help him in the county. So plus we've made money last year too. So because his fund balance is about $33,477. So, and if you remember, this year the state has increased that amount to $20,000. So we got $50,000 to work with. So we should come out pretty good this year with the weed control. And he starts back up on April the 16th is when he comes back in full time.
I know there were some happier farmers last year. I used to get broadside at coffee shops and stuff.
Well, it was a good program before. I mean, there was a few issues with it that we had to resolve, but I mean, I'm not sure why it ended, but I wasn't here then, so I'm not sure. It is what it is. But it's back now.
That's you.
Okay.
And it's all back now, working great.
Now, Nicholson.
Yeah, Nicholson, if you remember the...
Keeps on
You
giving.
can say that about this one.
This is the one that keeps on giving.
Is he surplus Nicholson out?
Yeah, I'd like to. If you remember that I stopped the contract that we had before with the pilot test that was going on out there because it was really going nowhere. They weren't having any success making any type of movement as far as treating the water to quality to what we needed. I went back to Farmers Home and we looked at it again. We're back to McCrone and they got us a change order to come back and look at those other options that were available at that time and do another pilot test once we have everything in place to get this thing straight. And their change order is 21.5, and we've got money in the budget from last year. We have to reallocate or reappropriate it over to the fund it needs to go into the engineering fund, but I'm recommending approval of that so we can
So moved.
get moving on that.
All right, moving second
To get him out of here, Bill.
reallocation of funds for the change order number 3. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion's approved. I do?
Yes. Oh, that should be right there somewhere.
Yeah, it's right here. Anything else?
That's it.
Hurry up, because Rob was falling asleep back there.
Well, he took up the first hand.
Wait, thanks for staying.
That's true, so we can put him at the end.
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Thank you.
Drive him safe.
I will.
Rob, again.
This won't take an hour.
This one isn't as long as the last one, is it?
Is Mr. Reagan here? Mr. Reagan, could you come forward?
Oh.
Oh.
Santa, how are you?
Mr. Reagan, can you please remain standing? Sure. Okay, and raise your right hand. Solemnly promise or swear under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before us shall be true to the best of your knowledge and belief. If I can give some background, Ms. Reagan is proposed to be added to the liquor license of Smoke, Rattle, and Roll. She's a Kent County qualifier, and she's qualified in all respects. However, we are required to obtain a criminal history of all applicants, and the way we have done that has been by fingerprinting. The code does not require us to fingerprint, it just requires us to get a criminal history. Through no fault of her own, it's been difficult despite someone as young and youthful as Ms. Reagan. I guess over the years her fingers have, from hard work, have been kind of worn down. So we have been unable to get fingerprints from Ms. Reagan. So what we are proposing is that we simply ask her, we have done a case search check and she checked out fine, but we want to put her under oath and ask her if she has any criminal records. So
No.
you've never been convicted of a crime any place, anywhere, anytime.
No. And you can get my fingerprints if you go to Delaware. I was a CASA volunteer, and I was fingerprinted then.
I don't know. You know, in the movies, they always shave them off. You know?
I tried the post office, her picture wasn't up there.
No milk cartons.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Edler, do you have any questions for Ms.
No.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
No.
So if you are satisfied that she does not have a criminal history, she would qualify to be on the license. And the reason why we're here is the Kent County qualifier resigned from the company and is no longer on the license, so they need to replace the qualifier. And
Motion to accept.
Make a motion to allow Ms. Anna Riggins to be the one of the signers on Shake, Rattle, and Roll.
Second.
All right, moving second to accept the addition of a member to the license of Smoke, Rattle, and Roll in Chestertown, LLC. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you for being patient with us.
Have you ever sat through this much entertainment one evening?
Better than movie.
Yeah, we gotta start charging Bob.
You got Scott? Are you doing Scott?
I got Scott. I'm Scott. So I have a fiber update for you this evening. Scott did not stick around for the show. First is segment 19C, and this is in Chestertown. This is the hospital to the fire. Chestertown Volunteer Fire Company is complete and tested. So that's an update from the last time you were recorded. The Rock Hall segment 18 is complete. Test results will be available Thursday. Quaker Neck segment 12, conduit and handhole construction is continuing. Chestertown segment 19D, which is on Cannon Street, is in the engineering phase. And as far as an update for the anchor laterals, the anchor site laterals, the following have fiber installed and ready for splicing, which will be terminating fiber panels through tomorrow through Friday. That's 400 High, Chestertown Library, Garnett, Rock Hall Town Office, Civic Center, Rock Hall Elementary School, Gratitude. Next up, the anchor laterals, Chestertown Middle and Chestertown Fire, and that will be next week.
Marty Hell, Director of Human Resources, otherwise known as Personnel. Thank you for your patience.
Got him running.
I'll just, as a sidebar, Miss Anna Riggin worked her fingerprints off here at the county.
Oh, yes, she was.
So everybody knows that. Okay, on March 27th, we interviewed for a couple of positions out of Public Works, the first of which is the motor equipment, a vacant motor equipment operator, one position in the roads department. It was Danny and Al and myself interviewing, and we're making the request for approval of the individual listed at the salary listed.
Make a motion to approve the applicant as an MEO1 in the Public Works Department.
Second.
That's noted here.
Right. That's probably moved in second to approve to hire the individual for the vacant motor equipment operator position in the Public Works Department, Roads Division, as requested pending successful completion of county pre-employment requirements. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next up, on that same day, as I mentioned, we interviewed for a seasonal maintenance worker position at the grounds maintenance facility for the parks and parks. It was Jim Wright and myself. This year we had one applicant who applied, wonderful for the position, so we're recommending this individual be hired at the rate listed for the period listed, and it'll be the first time that we've had someone on board by April 15th when we view the season as starting.
So, motion to approve this applicant for a vacant seasonal maintenance worker position in Public Works Department, grounds maintenance, at an hourly rate of $11.61.
Second.
Probably moved in second to approve the individual for seasonal maintenance worker in the Department of Public Works Ground Maintenance Division as recommended pending successful completion of county pre-employment requirements. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously.
Wonderful. And I'll just put out there that we have one additional seasonal maintenance worker position available out there. It's open until filled on our website. If anybody's interested or knows of anybody, please have them come in. Thank you.
Where do we end?
The first item I have for you is a request to provide fiber to the Bayside Landing and Pool area. This was not originally one of our anchor sites, but it's requested in the amount of $6,000. The construction can be complete to get the fiber to the pool and Bayside area. And then this would be, amongst other items, this is also planning on being a homework hotspot. And that's a place where people can go and log on to the fiber when they visit the area. The request is to pay for it using revenues incoming generated from the slip rentals this year. Because it is an enterprise fund, there is money available to pay for that.
So moved. Second.
Probably moved in second to allocate $6,000 from the enterprise Bayside Pool Enterprise Fund cover the cost of the run fiber to Bayside Landing Park and Pool. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously. I would say also, this also will facilitate the surveillance cameras too.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. But you haven't seen the request for yet, but that's coming. Mm-hmm. And the final item that I have for you this evening is from Emergency Services on behalf of Wayne Darrell. In the budget, you had approved the purchase of 2 LifePak heart monitors in the FY18 budget. Before you tonight is the request for the purchase of the second one. The equipment itself is $27,120.08. However, there is a grant that will pay for $11,100. So the remaining cost to the county is $15,929.58, and there is money left in the budget for that purchase.
But it does say amount under budget is $4879.92. That means we have to
Correct.
move that from fund balance?
No,
Or contingency?
what that would be is if you add that to the 11,000, which is being paid for with the grant, that's where that piece is missing.
So no additional money?
No additional money. It's perfectly funded in the budget.
All right, move a second to approve the utilization of State of Maryland contract to purchase a LifePak 15 heart monitor defibrillator. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously. Okay. Do you have anything to say?
Good night.
Like to say good night?
Good night.
We don't mean to prolong this, but is it important that I think that our citizens and everyone around know that Kent County is a very special place. Our school system is top-notch, regardless of what maybe the rumors are. The school system is great here. We have great teachers. We have great support staff, et cetera. And I'm not saying that's because of you, but that's very, very important that we toot our own horn and recognize the positive things we have going on here in Kent County. Okay, it's easy to find negative things, but positive is very, very important. Anything from the news media? Yes, sir.
Yes, I've been coming to these meetings since April 2nd, 2006. So I've been coming for 12 years. And since I was here at 10 o'clock this morning, this has probably been one of the most entertaining days. So I'd like to congratulate all the participants. And the budget, I loved it. I understood all of it. Whoever put it together.
Showtime, right?
And we are glad that we are entertaining you, Bob. It really makes us feel good.
Okay. We have a couple of three individuals who would like to make the comment. Brian. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Ashley Langer. Yes. Right here, and your name and.
Yes.
Sure.
No.
Well, listen, I'm a teacher, and this is just how it works.
How long do I have to do this homework?
I'll do on Friday. Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ashley Langer, and I currently serve as the president of the Kent County Teachers Association. I teach second grade at Galena Elementary School. It's been brought to my attention that there have been questions surrounding the salaries of teachers in the past few weeks and what I've kind of seen and heard about and what has been done and what has not been done. So I brought with me this evening 2 packets of information just for you related to our contracts for the school year 2016 to 2017 and then the school year 2017 to 2018, this current year. But not what we have currently tentatively scheduled for next year. In each of these packets, there are 3 documents, which the first is kind of a summary of what we agreed to in our tentative agreement that I pass out to members. The second is communication between myself and Mr. Silver, confirming ratification amongst our members, because we have to ratify our agreement before we can take it to the Board of Education. And then minutes from the Board of Education meeting confirming that we signed our contracts and our approval by the Kent County Board of Ed. Although the process of regaining our steps was not as cut and dry as simply getting back 3 steps, it gets a little more complicated than that. 2 of our steps came back from eliminating steps 1 and 2, which kind of shifted, as I view it, everyone down the scale by 2 steps, and it also improved the beginning salaries already 2 years ago. And then we got an additional step on top of that. In 2017, 2018, we also received a step increase, although you'll notice that some bargaining unit members only received a $500 stipend increase because they were on a longevity step set. We kind of had towards the bottom of the scale these longevity steps, which hopefully, pending Board of Education approval, will be gone, which is our members are really excited about. But we wanted to make sure that everyone was given some kind of compensation, so they received $500 on top of that. As we've seen in the news as of late, many teachers across the country are fighting to improve their financial compensation, even for some to just receive a living wage in some states. I would not qualify Kent County in that department, thankfully, but it's definitely true in other places. If members of KCTA had not received our lost steps 2 years ago, we would be nearly 5 or 6 steps behind, and you would have most likely heard from teachers much sooner than now. It's my hope for our entire KCPS family, both support staff and teachers, that we continue to stay on track to receive our steps, and we work hard in negotiations to remain competitive financially with our neighbors, and not just at the beginning stages of our scale. We're very susceptible to losing teachers who are successful in the classroom to more financially appealing counties, especially in times in which those counties are seeing increases and we are not. For the small community that we are, we cannot afford these losses. And I know that the Board of Ed and KCTA have worked hard in bargaining to continue these positive efforts towards maintaining our community. So that's it. Thank you.
Well, let me do one response, and I think speaking for my colleagues too, it is most important to us the support that we can give to our professional teaching staff and their support staff. It's very, very important. Personally, I think it's more important than supporting any administrator. Because you're the ones that do the work. I mean, they think they do the work, but you really do it. And I think that's very, very important.
Good answer.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean, I've got my KCTA hat on right now.
Yeah, the boss is here too. So I think that's very, very important. And regardless of what any rumors or anything else, we always have your interests in mind all the time.
That healthy blend of new teachers and middle of the road teachers and those experienced teachers. And sometimes when we fall behind in financial, we lose a lot of the middle.
Oh yeah, you do. And it's in a broader sense, it's really unfortunate that the teaching profession requires a great deal of, well, it's the only one of the few professions that requires a degree, become highly qualified, be certified, but yet and in this country, it's one of the lowest paid professions we have, unfortunately, and it should be one of the highest paid. So
and I would just like to add that it is important for us to be able to keep our teacher salaries where they should be. And the only way in a small county we'll be able to do that is make sure that we prioritize our things and that we make sure we stretch our dollars as far as we can to make sure we can put more into the classroom.
Thank you. You're up, Jack.
Got nothing.
Nice.
How can you sit there all of this and not have nothing, Jack?
About all these internal questions.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We are adjourned.
Question for you. What they saying that?